Chapter 286, Zhuo Qingluan has leveled up. Debilitated, Feng Lu was too weak to even breathe properly, but she gritted her teeth and said nonetheless, we must keep going. She darted a gloating look at Feng Wu as she said so. The Crown Prince really didn't like Feng Wu at all, otherwise he would never leave her here deep inside a forest. Up ahead. Jun Linyuan took the lead and rode very fast. Cold rainwater slapped against his face and body, and it was bone-chillingly cold. However, when he recalled Feng Wu's smile for Feng Sun and the fact that she had ignored him completely without so much as darting a look in his direction, that even the cold rain couldn't extinguish the flames of fury in Jun Linyuan's chest. Poor Feng Sun. He had no idea that he was the source of Jun Linyuan's tantrum, and right now, he was nagging Xian Yi for an explanation. Boss Jun is so mad. Did someone piss him off? Rubbing his nose, Xian Yi gave Feng Sun a meaningful look. Feng Sun didn't take the hint and looked back at Xian Yi in confusion. Yan Yan caught up with them at that moment and she tugged at Feng Sun's sleeve. Cousin, it was all your fault. What did I do? Feng Sun asked in frustration. Yan Yan said, you know perfectly well how repulsive His Royal Highness finds Feng Wu, but you still decided to befriend her. Of course His Royal Highness is pissed. Whose side are you on, exactly? Really? Feng Sun tilted his head. Was Boss Jun that unforgiving? But little Feng Wu and her family are really weak. It's by sheer luck that nothing has happened to them so far. Who knows when they will run into magical beasts? If they do. By now, they were almost 50 kilometers away from Feng Wu's campsite, and he wouldn't be able to keep an eye on her if they went any further. Jun Linyuan nimbly dismounted. Feng Sun ran up to him right away and said ingratiatingly, Boss Jun, the rain is too heavy for us to keep going. How about we build a treehouse here and take shelter in it? He had expected to be turned down, but the Crown Prince only glanced at him and nodded. I'll go chop up some wood and start working on the treehouse. Ha ha ha, little Feng Wu and her family can stay overnight in it when they get here tomorrow. After that, Feng Sun was about to get on with the task. However, Jun Linyuan frowned a little and stopped Feng Sun. You've been stuck at the top level of the spiritual grandmaster stage for quite some time. Feng Sun's heart sank. Xian Yi has had a breakthrough, said Jun Linyuan casually. Ah, that successfully set Feng Sun off. He ran up to Xian Yi and grabbed him by his collar. When did this happen? When? Jun Linyuan's gaze was as sharp as a cold blade. From this moment on, you're going to forget about everything else and put all your effort into your cultivation. But Boss Jun, Feng Sun protested. Zhuo Qingluan broke through as well. Jun Linyuan made another casual comment. Ah, Feng Sun couldn't think about anything else now except for Zhuo Qingluan's advancement to the spiritual elder stage. He said in frustration, seriously? Zhuo Qingluan? She made it? Jun Linyuan snickered. She doesn't waste her talent the way you do. Whatever. I'm going to cultivate now. Nothing can stop me from cultivating. Feng Sun sat down with his legs crossed and switched to his cultivation mode right away. Zhuo Qingluan's breakthrough had motivated him greatly. However, before he entered the state of meditation, Feng Sun reminded Jun Linyuan, Boss Jun, could you maybe keep the news of Zhuo Qingluan's breakthrough from little Feng Wu? She'll be so upset if she hears about it. That pretty yet stubborn face appeared in Jun Linyuan's head. Chapter 287, What's Boss Jun's problem? Jun Linyuan looked bewildered and he snorted. Why do you care? Feng Sun clenched his fists. I have to. Zhuo Qingluan is sure to give little Feng Wu a hard time, and I must get better. That way, I'll be able to protect little Feng Wu. After that, Feng Sun started his cultivation right away, leaving the Crown Prince standing there looking stunned. Protect Feng Wu. Jun Linyuan looked pensively at Feng Sun. If that girl just gave in and begged for his help, no one would ever be able to give her a hard time at all. Xian Yi wasn't doing a very good job with the treehouse, For Feng had always taken care of tasks like this. Jun Linyuan's face darkened a little when he saw the completed treehouse. Xian Yi's heart sank. As expected, Jun Linyuan frowned a little and said, "Too small." Too small? How could that be? He had used the exact measurements as Feng had. Jun Linyuan was the only one using it, so how big did he need it to be? Exactly how much bigger? Xian Yi wavered. He had never missed Feng as much as he did now. However, Feng had escorted Feng Xiaoqi back to the imperial capital and they had no idea when he would be back. Just as Xian Yi was thinking about Feng came back. Xian Yi couldn't be any more pleased and he immediately handed the task to Feng. With Feng taking over, the new treehouse was solid, clean, neat, and looked very refreshing with all the green leaves. However, Jun Linyuan took a glance and went on frowning. It was obvious that he was still displeased. Xian Yi and Feng exchanged looks of bewilderment. Still too small? So, bigger? Xian Yi asked. Crossing his hands behind his back, Jun Linyuan gave off a self-important and unhurried air. However, one could tell with one look that he wasn't satisfied with the result. Build another one. What? Xian Yi was bemused. Boss Jun had never bothered to have a second treehouse built for the rest of them. What was going on here? Even Feng couldn't help but give Jun Linyuan another look. Something was definitely amiss here. Jun Linyuan walked away and disappeared into the forest. Xian Yi was bewildered. Where is Boss Jun going? Before long, they heard the noise of magical beasts scattering. Feng replied in his usual indifferent tone, expelling magical beasts, apparently. Xian Yi was even more confused. Why bother chasing them at all? Boss Jun and you yourself are more than enough to keep all of us safe. Plus, since when does Boss Jun himself need to do such petty tasks? He could have told us to do it. That was exactly what Feng was thinking as well. Hence, he also looked at the Crown Prince in bewilderment. Is it because we're not careful enough for him? Rubbing his chin, Xian Yi considered the possibility. Has anything happened in the past few days? Even Feng, the least gossipy person of them all, couldn't help but ask. Well, if you put it that way, there was something. Boss Jun and little Feng Wu had a row. Really? Tell me about it. The taciturn Feng was actively seeking gossip, which proved how disturbed he was by the Crown Prince's behavior. Xian Yi told Feng everything, then looked at the latter expectantly. Feng looked at that figure clad in black a short distance away. The teenager was born with the duty to rule over this continent. Was he going to be distracted now? Feng decided that he would wait and see. The night passed without incident. The first ray of sunshine lit up the entire treehouse through the window curtained by green leaves. Feng Sun opened his eyes, which flickered brightly in the sunlight. Just then. Author, Boss Jun, why build two treehouses? Jun Linyuan, shut up. Author, Boss Jun, why did you chase away the magical beasts yourself? Jun Linyuan, shut up. Author, was it because you thought the others wouldn't be as careful about it as you? Jun Linyuan, shut up. Chapter 288, Wait, where did the magical beasts go? Seeing Feng Sun beamed at the steward. Hey, you're back. The teenager's cheerful smile seemed to brighten up everything right away. Feng liked Feng Sun for his cheerfulness and he nodded at the latter. Young Master Feng, come and have some breakfast. We'll be on our way soon. However, Feng Sun dilly-dallied after breakfast and didn't want to leave. What are you waiting for? Xian Yi asked. Feng Sun kept looking in the direction Feng Wu would come from and he looked bewildered. Why isn't little Feng Wu here yet? Did something happen to them? Did some magical beasts eat them? Xian Yi smacked his own forehead. Dude, we're blazing the trail for them here and we've driven all the magical beasts away. There are no magical beasts left to eat them. You're right, Feng Sun's face lit up and he rubbed his hands together. By leading the way, not only can we leave treehouses behind for them to sleep in, we can also chase away all the dangerous beasts for them. Ha ha ha, I'm such a genius. That's exactly what we're gonna do. Xian Yi nudged Feng Sun with his elbow, reminding the latter that Boss Jun was watching. Feng Sun rubbed his nose. Since Boss Jun disliked Feng Wu so much, the guy probably didn't like to hear him talk about her this way. As expected, Feng Sun noticed that Junli Nguyen's handsome face had darkened a little. Sigh. Feng Sun moaned inwardly. Feng Wu was such a great girl, but why were those two so hostile toward one another? It really bothered him. Shall we set out now? Feng asked Jun Linyuan after getting the horses ready. The teenager who was going to rule the continent one day looked exceptionally pensive at the moment. He then darted an unhurried look at Feng Sun. Feng Sun was befuddled, but he smacked himself on the forehead immediately. Since Boss Jun didn't like Feng Wu, if he continued holding the team up to wait for Feng Wu, Boss Jun would be even more pissed. At that thought, Feng Sun let out a melancholy sigh. Well, let's go. Junli Nguyen's gaze fell on Feng Sun's face like a sharp blade. Feng Sun was confused. He had done everything that Boss Jun wanted, but the guy was still unhappy. What was he supposed to do? Your Royal Highness, shall we leave now? There was a meaningful look on Feng's usually impassive face. The future ruler of the empire clenched his fist and the look in his eyes was indecipherable. He said nothing before he hopped onto his horse and dashed off. Feng Sun rubbed his chin. Am I imagining it, or is Boss Jun angry? Looking at the proud Jun Linyuan riding off and the confused look on Feng Sun's face in turn, Xian Yi shook his head with a wry smile. It seemed that he had guessed right. I never thought, Xian Yi was amazed. You know what's going on? Feng Sun stared at Xian Yi with sparkling eyes. Xian Yi shrugged in a noncommittal manner. Tell me. Feng Sun was intrigued. It can't be explained. Little Xian, are you trying to get your ass kicked? I think you'll really become an idiot if I beat you one more time. You! The poor sunshine boy wasn't the sharpest tool in the box and was forever being laughed at by Xian Yi. Feng Wu and her family arrived sometime in the evening and the beautiful lady was elated to see the clean and neat treehouses. What pleased her even more was Chapter 289, She Needs Combat. As they traveled on, someone seemed to have cleared the trail for them, leaving behind nice treehouses and game ready to eat. However, Feng Wu wasn't happy at all. She needed her practice. She needed real combat. They were about to reach the imperial capital and she needed all the opportunities she could get to improve. Those people would eat her alive if she wasn't tough enough. Hence, while Feng Wu was ready to fight to death with all the magical beasts in the forest, she realized in disappointment that there were no magical beasts. Feng Wu was shocked. How could this be? They were in an extended stretch of frozen forest, and magical beasts were supposed to run rampant in this part of the woods. Their journey was supposed to be plagued by crises. But what really happened was nothing actually happened. Not even once. If she couldn't run into any magical beasts around the treehouse, she would try somewhere deeper in the woods. Feng Wu made up her mind. After instructing Uncle Qiu to protect her mother, she rushed into the woods to search for magical beasts. However, she didn't even find a rabbit, let alone ferocious magical beasts. The woods were void of any sound apart from the noise she made herself. It was unnaturally quiet. How could this happen? Feng Wu couldn't for the life of her figure it out. Where did all the magical beasts go? Where was she supposed to get her practice? Feng Wu was almost in tears. She would never expect that someone had chased away all the magical beasts beforehand. If she knew, she really would burst into tears. Feng Wu's original plan was to reach the spiritual Grandmaster stage before the end of their journey. However, without magical beasts, even with the help of the cub's spiritual energy, Feng Wu was only able to make it to level 9 of the spiritual master stage. She was so close to becoming a spiritual Grandmaster, but the breakthrough didn't happen. And Feng Wu had no idea when it would happen. Before they knew it, they were almost there. Sigh, seeing the walls of the imperial capital on their approach, Feng Wu signed in resignation. The Zhenwu Empire, the imperial capital. The city was the heart of the empire. The entire imperial capital reminded one of a vast, boundless building that stood on the horizon like a gigantic beast from ancient times. It was grand, spectacular, and awe-inspiring. The city gate was over 300 meters in height, and standing in the gateway, one looked as insignificant as an ant. Feng Wu was no stranger to the imperial capital. After all, she had lived here for the first 8 years of her life. It had been 5 years since she last entered the city, and Feng Wu was overwhelmed by mixed feelings. However, she had yet to get over her emotional moment when a man and a woman showed up from inside. "Feng Wu, I see you were close behind us." She heard Feng Lu's voice from up ahead. Looking up, Feng Wu saw Feng Yiran and Feng Lu standing there, as well as Feng Lu's undisguised delight at Feng Wu's discomfiture. Seeing how cheerful and refreshed these two were, Feng Wu knew that they had been back to the Feng manor already. The imperial capital was the territory of those people, so it was no wonder they made no secret of their arrogance. Walking up to Feng Wu, Feng Lu stared at the latter coldly. "Feng Wu, you're finally back in the imperial capital after 5 years. Feng Wu gave her an indifferent glance. "It's not too late to run away." Leaning toward Feng Wu, Feng Lu whispered in her ear. Feng Wu frowned a little, but her face remained impassive and undisturbed. Chapter 290, How can she do such a thing? "Well, if you're going to stay, then get ready for my revenge." "Feng Wu, you've just walked into your living hell." Feng Wu only darted a look at Feng Lu, then went back into her own carriage. She didn't act out. Feng Lu was disappointed. Her plan was to make a scene right outside the city gate so that the entire imperial capital would hear about the return of Feng Wu the good-for-nothing. That way, Feng Wu would be ridiculed by everyone. Feng Yiran went up to Feng Lu. "Xiao Lu, let's go back." The beautiful lady was scared. She took Feng Wu's hand and looked nervously at the latter. "I'm right here and nothing is going to happen to you." Feng Wu caressed her mother's fine, slim hands, and her face looked a little grim in the sunlight. Their carriage moved on, carrying them toward the manor of the Feng clan. They could hear all the people talking on the street. "Feng Wu is back." "Which Feng Wu? Which one do you think?" "The genius Feng Wu that used to be as famous as Jun Linyuan." "Right, that good-for-nothing who lost her true phoenix blood. I thought she was long dead." "She isn't, but they banished her to the border. I didn't think she would come back after 5 years. The cripple has some balls to come back now. Doesn't she realize that she will get nothing but ridicule and taunts here?" Sitting in the carriage with her legs crossed and her eyes closed, Feng Wu was absorbed in her cultivation. This was a world which valued martial prowess above anything else. Ever since losing her status as the little genius, she was surrounded by nothing but sneers and taunts. It had been Qingluan's doing all along, destroying Feng Wu's true phoenix blood, but the victim became the one who got the blame. "Nice job, Zhou family. Do you remember? There was a girl back then that was equally as famous as Feng Wu." "Of course we do. That's Zhou Qingyun, the eldest daughter of the Zhou family. She's not Zhou Qingyun anymore. She goes by the name Zhou Qingluan now. Qingluan, as in the big blue bird, the real phoenix. Do you know what Zhou Qingluan's cultivation stage is now, then?" "What stage?" "She's a spiritual elder already." "Holy shit. A spiritual elder? Seriously? She's not 15 yet and she's already a spiritual elder? Imagine what she will be like in the days to come. Poor Feng Wu. She's still useless in cultivation, and the gap between her and Zhou Qingyun will only grow wider. One day, she will be so far behind that she won't be able to follow Zhou Qingyun with her eyes." Up on the second floor of a restaurant by the street, a teenage boy and 2 teenage girls stood by the window. The teenager was looking casually out the window, but the 2 girls both had sneers on their faces. I would rather die out there than come back to the imperial capital if I were Feng Wu. The last thing I would want is to come back. Zhuo Qingyu, the girl in a pink dress, gloated at Feng Wu's discomfiture. She's not going to die that easily. She still has to throw herself at the crown prince. You have no idea how shamefully cloying she was during the entire trip. Gosh, I'm blushing just to talk about it, Yan Yan said diffidently. Throw herself at the crown prince? Yan Yan's words shocked not only Zhuo Qingyu, but the girls at the nearby tables as well. You have no idea. That Feng Wu is really. Not only wouldn't she leave His Royal Highness alone, she even tried to climb into bed with him in the middle of the night. My cousin saw it with his own eyes. You know who my cousin is, right? You mean young Lord Feng? That's him. He's the Crown Prince's childhood friend, and he wouldn't lie about something like this. Yan Yan smirked. Oh my god. Zhuo Qingyu put a hand over her mouth and looked shocked. How can Feng Wu, how can she do such a thing? She really has no shame at all. Chapter 291, The Feng Clan. Of course we can't imagine it. She grew up practicing it. What then? What happened after that? Zhuo Qingyu asked eagerly. Well, Yan Yan gave them a mysterious smile and paused for effect. By now, everyone in the restaurant was astonished by what Yan Yan had revealed. Many young ladies were jealous of Feng Wu for her previous engagement to Jun Linyuan and would throw mud at her whenever they had a chance. Guys, on the other hand, had a pretty good impression of Feng Wu and often pitied her for what she went through. But if what Yan Yan said was true, Feng Wu was a cripple as well as an idiot for losing her head over love. There was nothing good they could say about her anymore. Holding Yan Yan's arm, Zhuo Qingyu pressed, Tell us, what happened after that? Did His Royal Highness throw her out? That had to be what happened, right? Yan Yan said ambiguously, Do you think with His Royal Highness's temperament, he would cut her loose that easily? Wow, the restaurant erupted in astonishment. The longer Yan Yan held back, the more curious they became. Everyone loved good gossip and more girls than one could count were in love with Jun Linyuan. This piece of information was so arresting that it spread like wildfire. It started in the restaurant, but before long, it took wings and flew to all corners of the imperial capital. Have you heard? Feng Wu is so in love with the crown prince that she shamelessly tried to climb into bed with His Royal Highness. Really? Of course. Young Lord Feng saw it with his own eyes. It can't be any more true. This Feng Wu. She's disgusting. Why hasn't she died already? The rumor spread at a speed faster than one could imagine. It reached the Feng clan house before Feng Wu did. The Feng clan. The current head of the clan was the old Mrs. Feng, Feng Wu's grandmother. After the old Master Feng, Feng Wu's grandfather, walked out on the clan, old Mrs. Feng took over the position as head of the clan. She was distant, serious, magisterial, and not someone one could get along with easily. Old Mrs. Feng had 3 sons. Feng Yan Feng, the eldest son, had 2 sons and 2 daughters. And the old lady's second son was Feng Wu's father. Feng Wu's irresponsible dad disappeared before Feng Xiaoqi was born and hadn't been heard from ever since. Feng Yan Feng, Feng Wu's eldest uncle, had 2 sons, Feng Yiran and Feng Yi, and 2 daughters, Feng Yi and Feng Lu. Feng Wu and Feng Xiaoqi were the 5th girl and 7th boy respectively in their clan generation. The other unmentioned children were all Feng Wu's 3rd uncle's offspring. However, this uncle lived with his entire family in another city where he worked, so there weren't that many people living in the Feng manor in the imperial capital at the moment. In the main hall. Mother, that's what we've heard so far, Lady Wang, Feng Yanfeng's wife, was standing next to the old lady and informing the latter about all the rumors on the street. The old lady had thick eyebrows that were pointed at the end, which looked like a pair of sharp blades when she frowned, making those around her shudder. She was a tough lady who was even harder on herself than on others. As the string of beads turned in her hand, the old lady's eyes flickered grimly. She's not even here yet and we're already getting such rumors. What will happen when she arrives? Was this what she had in mind? To bring shame on all her sisters? There was no warmth in the old lady's voice. Despite having been around the old lady for so many years, Lady Wang still got the jitters when the old lady straightened her face. She's not here yet. Maybe it's all just a misunderstanding, Lady Wang said in a seemingly kind voice. However, the old lady only snickered. Misunderstanding? If that's the case, it only proves how stupid she is. Unlike everyone else, she's getting more foolish as she grows. Just then. Chapter 292, Keeping Her Family Safe. Lady Wang gloated. However, she had her head lowered, which prevented anyone else from seeing the mocking smile on her face. After wiping the sneer off her face, Lady Wang said mildly, "Mother, I think Xiao Wu knows how to handle something like this. She's a well-behaved and decent girl." However, the old lady cut her off with a snort. Well-behaved? No such rumor would spread if she really were well-behaved. Maybe someone made it up out of jealousy. Ha, the old lady smirked. Jealous of her? What for? What does she have now that's worth that kind of attention? Before Lady Wang could say another word, the old lady waved at her. You can stop trying to make excuses for her. Lady Wang seemed reluctant to do as she was told, but she nodded in the end. However, a smile flickered in her lowered eyes. Feng Wu, the old lady is prejudiced by her first impressions already. I'd like to see you talk your way out of this. Just then, Feng Wu's carriage arrived outside the Feng manor. As one of the 9 major families of the imperial capital, the Feng clan was able to maintain its appearance, despite its declining status in recent years. The lofty walls and awe-inspiring brown gate reminded one of a colossus. A carved stone golden flaming phoenix from ancient times was set on top of the wall with the head of the phoenix right above the gate. The bird's eyes were narrowed slightly, and no matter where one stood, they could feel those eyes on them. Many who passed through this gate felt their blood curdle under the gaze of those eyes. The gate was tightly shut and there was no sign that it was going to open. The plain carriage entered through the side gate and carried on along a narrow path paved with bluestone. The surface of the path was uneven and the ride became quite bumpy. The beautiful lady looked pleadingly at Feng Wu. She hadn't forgotten what happened 5 years ago, which still made her tremble in great trepidation. She looked as helpless as a puppy. Feng Wu took the lady's thin arm and smiled. "Mum, don't worry. I got you." That was always what she said when she comforted her mother. The lady gradually calmed down and looked less frightened. "Yes. Xiao Wu is here. I'm not afraid." Feng Wu smiled bitterly. The imperial capital was a place filled with sudden and perplexing changes, and as a mere level 9 spiritual master, she was simply too weak to keep her mother safe. Feng Wu desperately hoped that she could get stronger soon, so that she could keep her family safe. She then turned her thoughts to her younger brother. She wondered how Feng Xiaoqi was doing after Jun Linyuan took him away. Was he living comfortably? Had anyone given him a hard time? Would he be abused? While Feng Wu was lost in all the distracting thoughts, the carriage took a turn along the path and entered the second gate of the manor. It stopped abruptly after about 15 minutes. Feng Lu's arrogant voice rang out. "Feng Wu, you're home. Time to get out of the carriage." Interrupted, Feng Wu stopped her train of thought and came back to reality. She jumped out of the carriage first. She moved as swift as a spiritual swallow and Feng Lu was sick with jealousy as she stared at Feng Wu's slim figure and her graceful movements. Despite her abhorrence, Feng Lu had to admit that even without showing her face, Feng Wu was able to attract a lot of attention with that slender body of hers alone. That was so unfair. Chapter 293, Useless. 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 However, Feng Lu looked at Feng Wu expectantly, too excited to even blink. She wanted to see the look on Feng Wu's face when the latter realized that her home had been taken away. Feng Lu had been looking forward to this moment since last night, which kept her turning and tossing in bed. However, Feng Wu's first reaction when she got out of the carriage wasn't to look around. Instead, she turned around to help her graceful and delicate mother down. Ah! Qingluan turned out to be the first to cry out. What's this place? Why are we here? What happened? Here we go. Feng Lu looked at Feng Wu in excitement. She didn't want to miss a thing. After helping her mother out of the carriage and making sure that the latter was steady on her feet, Feng Wu turned around to examine the place. It was a dilapidated courtyard. The yard was overgrown with weeds and the houses were old and shabby. Even the walls were cracked. The roof tiles were broken in many places and the holes had only been filled with thatch. Feng Wu remembered this courtyard. Many years ago, this courtyard was where her grandfather's crazy younger brother lived. The courtyard had been struck by a thunderbolt once, which made the others deem it inauspicious. No one lived here after the old man went missing and the place thus became deserted. Were they going to make them live here now? Granny Zhao looked displeased. Why are we stopping here? Our flower butterfly yard is still way up ahead. Kaiyue, Feng Lu's head chambermaid, tittered. Granny Zhao, have you forgotten? Flower butterfly yard is Miss Lu's residence now. Why are you calling it yours? Both Granny Zhao's and Qingluan's eyes widened in disbelief. Granny Zhao flared up. Yours? How can it be yours? Flower butterfly yard belongs to the second branch of the Feng clan and that was the old Mrs. Feng's order. You can't just take it away like this. No way. I'm going to ask the old lady myself. Qingluan couldn't hold back her anger either. Clenching her fists, she protested, that's just outrageous. You're robbing us of our house. We'll see what the old lady has to say about this. Feng Lu was elated to see how pissed Granny Zhao and Qingluan were. However, to her disappointment, Feng Wu's face remained impassive the whole time and didn't look disturbed at all. Why could she remain so calm when her home had been taken away? Displeased with Feng Wu's reaction, Feng Lu snorted. Forget about flower butterfly yard. You're lucky to even have a roof over your heads. Who the hell do you think you are? You're just freeloaders that are of no use to the Feng clan. Feng Wu kept her calm gaze on Feng Lu, but something cold quickly flickered in her eyes. Feng Lu darted a glance at Feng Wu in satisfaction. Why? Are you unhappy to hear that? You're a cripple and that's a fact. You should know your place by now. You've become useless and you'll stay that way forever. Useless. 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 Feng Wu clenched her fists under her long sleeves. Useless? We'll see about that. With her current ability, she could send Feng Lu in the air with one strike. The girl would spit out blood and would have to stay in bed for 3 months. However, looking at her delicate mother next to her, Feng Wu reminded herself that she wasn't alone now. She had responsibilities and she had to tolerate the unfair treatment. She had waited for 5 years, she didn't mind waiting a little longer. Feng Wu only smiled. Feng Lu, you look so unbridled. Unbridled? Ha ha ha, my dear sister, I like that word. Feng Lu spoke slowly and her expression turned into a grim sneer. Chapter 294, Outrageous. Lowering her voice, Feng Lu whispered in Feng Wu's ear, for everything you've done to me during the journey, I'll pay you back 100 times in the days to come. Feng Wu smiled. I'm looking forward to it. Feng Lu clenched her fists. That devil-may-care tone was so frustrating. You are. Wait and see. Feng Lu stormed off. She decided that she was going to draw up a plan to periodically abuse Feng Wu. She would come up with something small every day, and every month, she would set a midterm goal. Her ultimate goal was to make Feng Wu live in hell. Feng Wu's family looked at one another in bewilderment after Feng Lu left. Miss Wu, Qingluan said with a long face. This is unacceptable. How can they make us live in such conditions? We're one of the branches of the family. Granny Zhao was also furious. Miss Wu, I'm going to see the old lady now and I'll ask her about this. Feng Wu only smiled. Be patient. Miss Wu, patient. How could they be patient? Start cleaning up the place. Feng Wu gave a succinct instruction. But, Feng Wu cut Qingluan off. Do you think the old lady doesn't know about this? Feng Wu snickered. That tough old lady who needs to control everything, let other people make the decision for her? Do you think that's what happened? The old lady, Qingluan cried out in surprise. Back then, the old lady couldn't have been any more affectionate toward Miss Wu. She doted on this granddaughter and had all the resources of the Feng clan ready at Miss Wu's disposal. But now, you do realize that I'm not really useless, right? Feng Wu smiled. The pendulum swings both ways, let's just wait and see. Everyone was enlightened by Feng Wu's words. That was true. Their mistress was awesome. She had reached level 9 of the spiritual master stage in a few months after she resumed her cultivation. By the standard of education in the empire, Miss Wu, a girl of 13, was equivalent to an intermediate school graduate, and was already qualified to apply to the Imperial College. Everyone was relieved at the thought. They could barely contain their excitement at the thought of all the embarrassed faces out there once everyone else learned that Miss Wu had recovered her talents. They felt like jumping around in excitement. Yes. That's right. I can't wait to see the looks on their faces. It'll be so much fun. After regaining peace of mind, Granny Zhao and Qingluan were full of vigor again. They went off to pull up the weeds, repair the roof, and dust the rooms. After leaving the courtyard, Feng Lu went directly to Lady Wang's flying snow building with a bunch of maids and nannies trailing behind her. Mom! Mom! Feng Lu threw herself at Lady Wang like a butterfly. Holding her mother's arm, she said in a cloying voice, Mum, guess where I was just now? Lady Wang had just come back from the old lady's conscience hall. Seeing how happy Feng Lu was, she tapped her spoiled daughter lightly on her forehead. You were with Feng Wu. Mum, why are you so clever? You really are the best mother in the world. Feng Lu was a spoiled little girl around her mother. Lady Wang smiled. How's that family doing? Ha ha ha, Feng Lu guffawed. We had them enter through the side gate when they arrived, and the main gate wasn't even open. Then, we led them all the way to that shabby fallen star yard. Chapter 295, Shocked. Ha ha ha. Fallen Star Yard. Mum, don't you think that's the perfect name for Feng Wu? What had once been the brightest of the imperial capital had fallen and had lain in the dust ever since. Lady Wang poked Feng Lu lightly in her forehead. Keep your voice down. Feng Lu couldn't care less. Why should I? I can laugh as loud as I want and there's nothing she can do about it. Plus, so what if she hears me? What can that cripple do to me now? I can strike her down with a single slap. Not only am I laughing right now, I did so right in her face. And what was her reaction? Something flickered in Lady Wang's eyes. What can she possibly do? She might look all calm, but she must have been all furious inside. There's nothing she can do to me, so she had to swallow the humiliation. Ha ha ha, Mum, you have no idea how sorry Feng Wu looked. Who would have thought that she was so brilliant just 5 years ago? Back then, Feng Wu's gaze had been so sharp that one glance from her was enough to make Feng Lu shudder. Is she that helpless now? Lady Wang asked in a seemingly casual tone. Of course. Come, Mum. I'll show you what a sorry state they're in now. Feng Lu then dragged Lady Wang to Fallen Star Yard. Feng Lu couldn't hold back her excitement on the way. Fallen Star Yard has been deserted for so long and the weeds are about as tall as I am. There are snakes, rats, and insects everywhere, and it's so remote. Isn't Feng Wu's little mother a coward and a neat freak? I'd like to see her live there. Feng Lu was confident that Feng Wu had been putting on an act as a tough girl. She definitely started crying the moment Feng Lu turned to leave. The door to Fallen Star Yard was closed tight, as if it was shutting out the outside world. "Mom, let's open the door quietly. Feng Wu will be caught by surprise and we'll see how sorry she looks." Ha ha ha. After that, Feng Lu let go of Lady Wang's hand, ran up to the door, and kicked it. Cracked. The wooden door was already rotten and Feng Lu's foot got stuck in the hole she made. Before she could draw her foot back, the plank in the door fell forward at the momentum. And it took Feng Lu with it. Flustered, Feng Lu reached out to grab Kaiyue. Poor Kaiyue. She could have easily stopped Feng Lu from falling, but she seemed to have stepped on something and lost her footing. Immediately. Both girls fell forward together. Miss Lu. All the maids and nannies were exasperated and they tried their best to stop Feng Lu from falling. But they were too late. Feng Lu fell onto the door face first and she had never looked more sorry. The maids and nannies behind her all seemed to slip and everyone fell forward. Everything happened so fast that it looked like they had been pulled forward by an invisible string. Thump. 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 Lady Wang had come with a large entourage, which consisted of as many as a dozen maids and nannies. And all 12 people fell onto Feng Lu. And they crashed down hard. Bang! One body smashed onto Feng Lu. That hurt. Thud, thud, thud. Another 11 followed and Feng Lu nearly burst into tears. Behind them, Lady Wang watched in disbelief. She was shocked. Chapter 296, The Resourceful Feng Wu. Lady Wang watched this with a gaping mouth. Feng Lu had dragged her here to have a good laugh at Feng Wu's branch of the family. However, they had become jokes themselves before even setting foot in Feng Wu's yard. Lady Wang blushed profusely. This was so embarrassing. Hiding behind the door, Qingluan almost burst out laughing when she saw the sorry state Feng Lu and her minions were in. She put her hands over her mouth immediately to muffle her laughter. Miss Wu was so smart and the grumpy Miss Lu looked like an idiot in comparison. Hearing the noise, Feng Wu and her family came out, looking surprised. Feng Wu guffawed inwardly when she saw the farce outside, but she only reacted with a frown. Why is everyone falling over everyone else? Feng Lu, what did you do to my door? Feng Lu heard this when her maids and nannies were rushing over to help her to her feet. Seeing what an embarrassing fool she had made of herself, Feng Lu was furious. She pointed at Feng Wu with a trembling finger and couldn't think of what to say. You. Feng Wu frowned. I admit that you were very rude earlier, but I really didn't expect you to apologize with a kowtow. Feng Lu stammered. You. Feng Wu. Feng Wu blinked her pretty black eyes, which shone like clear water. She looked perfectly innocent as she said, Why, are you not here to apologize? Seeing this, Lady Wang shook her head inwardly. She had considered Feng Lu a smart girl, but that was when the girl was on her own. When Feng Wu was around, Feng Lu's inferiority was so apparent that it was cruel to try and compare them. As Feng Lu's mother, Lady Wang obviously didn't want to see her own daughter humiliated like this. Hence, she entered the courtyard at a graceful gait, with her maids at her elbows. Lady Wang put on the warmest smile, looking all kind and gracious. She then said to Feng Wu, Xiao Wu, your sister was so happy and wanted to see you as soon as possible. She was in such a hurry that she bumped into your door accidentally. How careless of her. Lady Wang's tone was as warm as her smile and she held Feng Wu's slim arm as she walked, looking all affectionate. Xiao Wu, the two of you used to enjoy rough and tumble play when you were little. I see that the habit hasn't changed after 5 years, which says a lot about how close the two of you still are, despite those 5 years. I'm so glad. Feng Wu darted a glance at Lady Wang with a half-smile. Lady Wang was nothing like her simple-minded daughter. Behind that benevolent and gentle smile, she had the heart of a wolf. She was someone who harbored a serpent in her bosom and had a habit of stabbing others in the back. The lady was as cunning as an old fox. Without so much as batting an eyelash, she had turned Feng Lu's boorish behavior into an expression of sisterly love. That way, no one would be able to criticize Feng Lu for it if word got out. Lady Wang had taken some painstaking effort to keep Feng Lu out of trouble. Lady Wang was displeased by Feng Lu's silent smile. She felt as if the girl had seen through her right away in spite of her carefully prepared performance. This was why she had disliked Feng Lu ever since the girl was little, for the girl's knowing black eyes seemed to be able to see through all the plots and hypocritical acts in the world. Lady Wang could no longer keep up her performance. Letting go of Feng Lu's hand, she took the beautiful lady's hand instead and said in an affectionate voice, "Sister-in-law, it's been years since we last met. How have you been? You look so thin. Don't worry. Now that you're back, everything will be fine." Chapter 297, The Old Fox. The beautiful lady obviously didn't like Lady Wang. Fear flickered in her limpid eyes and she tried her best to draw her hand back. However, Lady Wang's grip was very tight. The lady was on the verge of tears. She turned to Feng Lu and pleaded with her eyes. Feng Lu went up to them and took Lady Wang by the wrist. "We're back now and everything's going to be fine. My dear aunt, if that's the case, can we perhaps have our flower butterfly yard back?" The smile froze on Lady Wang's face. This was exactly why she didn't like Feng Lu. The kid would always disregard the feelings of others and get right to the point, embarrassing everyone. Before Lady Wang could reply, Feng Lu snorted. "I've been living in Flower Butterfly Yard for 5 years and it's mine. Why should we give it to you? You people are robbers. You want to rob me of my home as soon as you come back. Robbers? I finally know what a robber acts like a cop means." Feng Lu gave her a half-smile. "You." Seeing that Feng Lu was going to fight with Feng Lu again, Lady Wang smacked her forehead. Why did her daughter get agitated so easily? She had no choice but to intervene. "Xiao Wu, I know Flower Butterfly Yard used to belong to your branch of the family, but someone else must have lived there before you moved in. So technically, it isn't yours. Moreover, you were crippled, your brother became seriously ill, your mother lost her mind, and your father went missing. All this made your grandmother think that the house was cursed and would only bring bad luck to the family. She wanted to set fire to it. Xiao Lu stepped out then, and bravely said that she would live there and turn bad luck into good. And she was right. The Feng clan has been living peacefully for the last 5 years. Everything's been going well and there hasn't been any misfortune." Lady Wang spoke in her gentle voice. She knew perfectly when to pause, when to stress her words, and when to lower her pitch. She was an expert storyteller, which was what her husband loved the most about her. She then turned to Feng Lu with an aggrieved look on her face. "Xiao Wu, you're talking about Xiao Lu taking your house, but she's actually doing you a great favor by removing all the ill fortune for you. You don't have to thank her for it, but I'm really sad to hear you misunderstand her like this." Feng Lu stared at her mother with an open mouth. That was incredible. Her dear mother had turned Feng Lu's occupation of Feng Lu's property into an act of averting disaster, which was practically calling black white. That way, Feng Lu could keep Flower Butterfly Yard, and not only couldn't Feng Lu accuse her of it, she had to thank her. "Mother, you're so clever." The beautiful lady was flustered and sweat covered her smooth forehead. "No. No. That's not true." Feng Lu scoffed at Feng Lu. Could her mother say anything else apart from no? Feng Lu darted a glance at Feng Lu. "So what? My mother is beautiful." Feng Lu was speechless. Feng Lu then gave Lady Wang a half-smile. "So, you're saying that Flower Butterfly Yard is ominous? Is that it?" "That's right," said Lady Wang. "Even now, snakes and rats still crawl in every now and then even after your sister moved in. That's how unpleasant the place is. Xiao Wu, you've lost your cultivation and your mother is. I'm really doing this for your own good. That house is not for you." "I see." Feng Wu smirked. Is a shabby yard like this the only thing for us, then? Chapter 298, Aunt, how kind of you. The tables and chairs all have parts missing and the plates are all cracked. Aunt, you're the one who manages the household affairs in this manner, aren't you? Is this how you do your job? Maybe I should go talk to my uncle. Feng Wu's uncle, Lady Wang's husband, wasn't known for rectitude, but he cared about his reputation above all else, and Feng Wu knew exactly how to manipulate him. Lady Wang knew Feng Yanfeng's temperament only too well. She had no choice but to squeeze a reply out through gritted teeth. There's really no need to mention those things. I was going to have them changed for you later. Xiao Wu, what kind of evil person do you take me for? Do you think I'll mistreat your family? Feng Wu's bright eyes met Lady Wang's gaze and she smiled knowingly at the latter. Lady Wang almost gave up on her act every time she saw that look in Feng Wu's eyes. And, Lady Wang went on with her performance, you shouldn't have done all this dirty work of weeding and mending the roof yourself. I brought people here with me just for that. You should have waited for me. Lady Wang heaved a deep sigh and looked at Feng Wu with pity. You must have gotten used to all the hardship out there if you're doing everything yourself. We're a noble family. Crippled or not, you're still a young lady of the Feng family. Someone with your distinguished status shouldn't never dirty your hands with hard labor like this. She then turned to scold the beautiful lady. How can you raise a daughter of the Feng clan into a wild girl like this? Mother is going to reproach you if she learns about this. Lady Wang was fuming inside. How could she not? She and Feng Lu had planned to see Feng Wu and her family crying their eyes out. However, Feng Lu had turned herself into a laughingstock before even setting foot in the yard, giving Feng Wu a chance to jeer at her. After they entered the courtyard, they saw that not only wasn't the family crying, they had even cleaned up the shabby fallen star yard. Instead, Lady Wang had been taunted by Feng Wu over and over again until the former promised to send them the necessities. Her original plan had been to stall until Feng Wu pleaded with her in tears. Feng Wu smiled at Lady Wang. Aunt, you're mistaken. Surely not. How adorable you used to be. Look at how rough you are now. Feng Wu smiled. Aunt, I see you care for me a lot. Of course I do. Don't you remember? I always treated you like one of my own. That was true. Back when Feng Wu was the little genius, her aunt had indeed been very nice to her and took care of every aspect of her life. However, once she fell. Feng Wu smiled again. Aunt, did you bring all these people here to help us tidy up Fallen Star Yard? Of course. I could never bring myself to see you do everything on your own. Look at you. Your face is smeared with dirt. Lady Wang took out her handkerchief, wanting to wipe Feng Wu's face for her. Feng Wu smiled at her. I guess I should thank you in advance, then. What? Lady Wang was baffled. Feng Wu opened a door, revealing the filthy room within. Your people will have a lot of work to do. The room was lit up by the light coming in through the window. They could see everything, the damp floor, the cracked walls, and a rat scuttling away. The yard was so clean, and Feng Wu had mentioned broken plates. Chapter 299, Feng Wu, you really are. Lady Wang thought that Feng Wu had finished tidying up the whole place, but as it turned out, the rooms had remained untouched. A faint smile emerged on Feng Wu's face. Aunt, you look surprised. Are you trying to figure out if there's another empty courtyard that we can move into? Lady Wang was rendered speechless. She then gave Feng Wu a wry smile. You're making fun of your aunt here. We would never have let you settle down here if there was another empty courtyard. So? Feng Wu asked casually. Well, I was just thinking about how many people I should send over to clean the place for you, since it's so dirty here. Feng Wu smiled. What's there to think about? You've brought over a dozen servants with you, haven't you? They'll suffice. It wasn't that Lady Wang couldn't bear to see her servants get their hands dirty, it was just that she felt so defeated. She thought she would be a gloating onlooker, but as it turned out, it was Feng Wu who was having all the fun. Despite her unwillingness, Lady Wang had to admit her defeat in this first round. Furthermore, she had made all these grand promises, and she would only humiliate herself further by going back on her word. Lady Wang had no choice but to instruct her servants to start cleaning. As for herself, she made up some random excuse and left with Feng Lu shortly afterward. Before she left, she winked at Granny Gui. As Lady Wang's head chambermaid, Granny Gui took the hint right away and smiled knowingly. Miss Wu had forced them to do hard labor for her. The young lady was biting off more than she could chew. Granny Gui and the others spared no effort in tidying up the place, for they had to keep up their superficial charm. As for what they did when no one was looking, that was a completely different story. Fallen Star Yard was cleaned up in no time and all the daily necessities were sent over. Lady Wang even ordered the broken plank in the door to be replaced. After all, it was a great concern for her. She worried that other people might ask about Fallen Star Yard's missing door, and when that happened, Feng Wu might take the opportunity to vividly describe what had happened today, which would turn Feng Lu into a laughingstock. Flying Snow Building. Feng Lu sat angrily on a chaise longue and glared at Lady Wang. Didn't we say that we were going to make them suffer? Why did you send all those things to them? And why did you let Granny Gui and the others help her? Feng Wu isn't worth it. Lady Wang looked at Feng Lu in resignation. After 5 years, Feng Wu is still useless cultivation-wise, but she's still the same genius in all other aspects. Xiao Lu, you can't beat her. What? Feng Lu bolted up and glowered at her mother. Mum, how can you say such things about your daughter? Are you comparing me with that useless girl? You're humiliating me. Why can't I beat her? Feng Lu was so angry. Her own mother was looking down on her. Lady Wang rubbed her forehead and felt that she was getting a headache. You. Just then, Granny Gui came back with the other servants, their clothes all smeared with dirt. Lady Wang sent them away to clean up. After briefly cleaning herself up, Granny Gui came back in. All done. Lady Wang held a white porcelain cup in her hands, verdant green tea leaves floating in the water. A ruby ring twinkled on her little finger. Yes. Granny Gui gloated. I buried it in a corner when they weren't looking. That family won't see it coming. Lady Wang smiled in satisfaction. Feng Wu, you really. Chapter 300, Restrain yourself, keep a low profile, and maintain your composure. She brought it on herself. That's so true. Granny Gui beamed at her mistress. Miss Wu made us stay behind to work for her, but she's forgotten that there's no such thing as a free lunch. What are you talking about? Feng Lu was at a loss. I don't understand. It's fine. Xiao Lu, didn't you want to see that branch of the family make a fool of themselves? Lady Wang smiled in a careless way. But Mum, didn't your scheme turn into a fiasco and Feng Wu forced you to do her bidding? Feng Lu blurted out the truth, which gave her mother a phantom headache. While Lady Wang rubbed her forehead in resignation, Granny Gui smiled at Feng Lu. Miss Lu, you'll see what this is about tomorrow morning. It'll be a great show over there in that branch, so make sure you get up early to watch it. Feng Lu's eyes lit up as bright as stars. Are you sure? You can take my word for it. Granny Gui gloated. She had buried that thing herself, while putting some others in various spots. There was no escape for Feng Wu. Lady Wang looked out the window at the clear blue sky, her eyes glinting like sharp blades. That family should have stayed in the border city and lived out the rest of their days as good-for-nothings, but they just had to come back to the imperial capital to be humiliated. Everyone would admit that they had it coming. Fallen Star Yard. Qingluan couldn't stop smiling after Granny Gui and the other servants left. I thought that we would never be able to make this Fallen Star Yard habitable. Thanks to Lady Wang, we have everything we need now. Qingluan smiled into her palm. She was here to have a good laugh at us, wasn't she? I bet she's so pissed right now. Granny Zhao cast a stern look at Qingluan. Have you forgotten everything I taught you? Restrain yourself, keep a low profile, and maintain your composure. Alright, Qingluan massaged her cheeks, which were sore from all the grinning. I'm just too happy to see Lady Wang reap what she sowed. It's still too early to say that. Granny Zhao gave Qingluan a meaningful look, then turned to Feng Wu. Miss Wu, when Qingluan, Lady Wang's chambermaid, struck up a conversation with me as a distraction, I saw Granny Gui bury something herself. Qingluan was surprised. What did she bury? How come she had no idea? Granny Zhao glared at Qingluan. You were too absorbed in taking pleasure in their little misfortune to notice anything else. Do you have any idea how many people are plotting against Miss Wu and using the most covert schemes? You're so careless. How can I leave Miss Wu in your care? Feng Wu only watched as Granny Zhao excoriated Qingluan and didn't intervene. Veterans were always more capable than recruits. Granny Zhao had noticed a small detail like this when Qingluan had missed it, which said a lot. Qingluan was warm-hearted and meticulous in taking care of Feng Wu's daily needs, but she was nothing like Granny Zhao when it came to guarding against the harm others might do them. And this was just the beginning. The imperial capital was an ever-changing city, and schemes and plots were bound to come at them non-stop. Feng Wu would rather that Qingluan was scolded and she learned to be cautious now than have her come to grief in the future. Hence, Feng Wu said nothing. She only went to the yard and dug out what Granny Gui had buried. Seeing that Granny Zhao was telling the truth, Qingluan blanched. She hadn't noticed anything. If her mistress had really fallen victim to this. Qingluan burst into tears. Feng Wu was amused. Don't cry, you poor girl. Just be more careful in the future. Everyone has to learn along the way. Use your brain, that's all. Chapter 301, She'll be busy soon. What is it? Qingluan asked as she wiped away her tears, her eyes still red from crying. What were they going to do to Miss Wu? Feng Wu unwrapped a palm-sized bundle, revealing an object that resembled a bar of soap. She gave it a sniff and snorted. It's spring breeze powder. What's that? Qingluan asked curiously. Granny Zhao's and Uncle Chio's faces turned livid at that name. Feng Wu said, it's something that'll cause a man and a woman to be consumed by lust. Gosh! Qingluan covered her mouth in astonishment. That's, oh God. Lady Wang wanted them dead. Feng Wu smiled. When that lady tries something, it's always in 2s or 3s. This can't be the only thing. What do we do now? Feng Wu said nothing. Instead, she took the cub out of her chest pocket. The little thing was eager to try itself. Feng Tutu had slept on the entire journey, and was now ready for some action. After jumping out of Feng Wu's arms, it headed right for the kitchen. Everyone followed it curiously. Feng Tutu hopped onto the stove and began to dig diligently, puffing at the effort. Before long, a dark green pellet the size of a pigeon egg emerged. What's this? Everyone turned to Feng Wu for an answer. Picking up the pellet, Feng Wu smirked after taking just one look. It's black Qingluan 1 venom. Qingluan asked, what's black Qingluan venom? Feng Wu smiled a little, but her eyes were cold. As the name suggests, it comes from the venom of the black Qingluan, and creates a colorless and odorless toxic gas when heated. The woman really planned it well. By burying it in the stove, the toxin will get into the food and gradually poison us. Once it accumulates, Qingluan and the others blanched. What an insidious scheme. As if that spring breeze powder wasn't abhorrent enough, she had to top it off with black Qingluan venom. The woman wanted to make sure that Feng Wu and her family were ruined. This is pure evil. Lady Wang is so. Qingluan clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. She sounds so nice and caring in front of other people, as if she cares about us so much. Who would have thought that she could be this malicious? A honey tongue and a heart of gall, that woman is so dreadful. Feng Wu nodded. She had revealed this to everyone not to scare them, but to remind them that they should be aware at all times and remain vigilant. Looking around, Feng Wu said calmly, people like Feng Lu with her empty arrogance aren't our most formidable enemies. However, we have to be cautious around someone like Lady Wang, who hides a dagger in her smile. From now on, if Lady Wang summons you or invites my mother over, you know what to do. We won't go. Not for all the orders in the world. We'll stall until Miss Wu gets back, Qingluan said earnestly. Feng Wu chuckled when she saw how alert Qingluan was. You don't have to be on edge. As long as that lady is busy, she won't have time to bother us. But she's not busy, Qingluan said. She has servants to run errands for her, all she needs to do is give orders. No, she'll be very busy very soon. That night, a figure leapt out of Fallen Star Yard, nimble as a cat. She jumped around in the dark and quickly made her way into Flower Butterfly Yard. Having grown up in Flower Butterfly Yard, Feng Wu knew the place like the back of her hand. Footnotes. Chapter 302, How dare she humiliate me like this? Flower Butterfly Yard consisted of 3 courtyards and a lot of rooms. At this time of the year, the garden was filled with blossoming flowers and the view was spectacular. Feng Wu knew exactly which room Feng Lu was in without having to ask around. Who was the person Feng Lu hated most? Feng Wu, obviously. She had taken Flower Butterfly Yard away for no reason other than it used to be Feng Wu's home. Hence, her room would be none other than Feng Wu's old bedchamber. Feng Wu followed the familiar path that led to her perching phoenix pavilion. As the name suggested, it was where a phoenix was supposed to perch. Because Feng Wu had been born with the mysterious, powerful true phoenix blood, which hadn't appeared in the Feng clan for 1,000 years, everyone in the clan had been thrilled and her living quarters had hence been named Perching Phoenix Pavilion. Outside the building, a tall Chinese parasol tree stood upright in the yard. With the help of the tree trunk, Feng Wu jumped onto the roof of Perching Phoenix Pavilion, as swift as a swallow. The inside of Perching Phoenix Pavilion was brightly lit. And Feng Wu could hear people talking. Qingluan, remember to wake me up early tomorrow. Miss, you've always stayed in bed in the morning. Are you sure? Why do you even ask? Of course I'm sure. You have no idea what fun we'll have tomorrow. Ha 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 ha, Feng Lu was so thrilled that she rolled around in bed. Miss, what kind of fun will there be? Do you mind giving me a hint? Feng Lu was so eager to tell someone and had only paused for effect so that Qingluan would ask. She answered the question promptly. Ha ha ha, Feng Wu's reputation will be ruined for good tomorrow. Ha ha ha. But how is that possible? In this manner. Ha! Feng Lu snorted. Too bad that Feng Xiaoqi isn't here. I would have made him part of the farce if he were around. Imagine how much fun that would be. Well, no worries. After Feng Wu is dead, I can easily take care of Feng Xiaoqi on my own. Outside, Feng Wu heard every word. She couldn't for the life of her figure out what she had ever done to Feng Lu to make the girl hold such a grudge against her. Why did Feng Lu hate her so much? Miss, why do you want Miss Wu dead? Qingluan asked the question Feng Wu wanted to ask. She wanted me dead first. Feng Lu flared up as she walked down memory lane. Do you know how she used to treat me? Before, she was this genius that was so superior. She was the future of the Feng clan and she had first claim on all the resources in the family. The other kids like us had a monthly allowance of a measly 3 spirit stones. Do you know what she did? She acted all sincere and handed me 3 spirit stones, saying that they were a gift for my cultivation. Ha ha ha. A gift? For me? My father is the eldest son of my grandfather and all the resources of the clan belong to us, the first branch of the clan. How dare she bestow a gift on me? She was using my resources and she was making a gift out of it? Who does she think she is? I told her that I would pay her back after I grew up, and do you know what she said? She told me no need to bother, for they were just some little spirit stones. Ha ha ha, little spirit stones. She knew perfectly well that those spirit stones were vital for my cultivation and I couldn't get my hands on them no matter what. She humiliated me like that. How dare she show off in front of me? Who the hell does she think she is? At that moment, I felt like tearing her throat open with my teeth. Outside, Feng Wu recalled this incident. She had only been 5 and Feng Lu was even younger. She had no idea that Feng Lu would still be bothered by this and that she had been so narrow-minded at that young age. Ha ha ha. Karma really is a bitch. Feng Lu said. Chapter 303, You tried to harm my family first. We've come full circle and my family is finally on top. Feng Wu is a good-for-nothing now. Ha ha ha. She's useless. When that happened, everyone in the clan was devastated, but I laughed for 3 days. Feng Lu's eyes glinted coldly. The others have no idea who did it to Feng Wu, but I do. I saw it and I didn't come back to get help. I wanted her dead. She survived, but her cultivation was ruined, which pleased me more than seeing her dead. That way, I could humiliate her, laugh at her, and taunt her as much as I want. She's just a piece of garbage now. She got lucky. They banished her to northern border city, where she got to live in peace for 5 years, but I was never going to let her have peace. Hence, we went to northern border city just to bring her back. Only that way can I go on abusing her, bullying her, and humiliating her. Trying to take His Royal Highness from me was her worst decision ever. His Royal Highness is mine and everyone that competes with me must die. Even Qingluan. Feng Lu's face twisted. Although, I'll deal with Qingluan later. Feng Wu is my top priority now. I'll show His Royal Highness what a slut Feng Wu is. Miss, you. Qingluan, remember to go to the clan's stable before dawn and unleash the spiritual beasts we keep there. They'll know where to go. Miss. Did you hear me? Yes. Qingluan was shaken. She had no idea that Miss Lu could be this malicious. But if this gets out, your reputation will be affected as well. Qingluan tried to talk her out of it. Mother won't let it get out, neither will grandmother. So, the only solution is... Ho ho. The more she thought about it, the more conceited Feng Lu became. Feng Wu stood right outside the window. And she heard every word of their conversation. She knew that Feng Lu wanted her dead, but she had no idea that her hatred stemmed from such petty things. Feng Lu had been quite adorable when she was little. She used to follow Feng Wu around and call her Sister Wu. Feng Wu had pitied her, which was why she had given her those spirit stones. Little did she know that Feng Lu was such an ungrateful and vicious girl. Feng Wu's eyes darkened. Night had fallen. Feng Wu smiled a little. The shut window opened quietly. Instead of going in directly, Feng Wu blew some soporific incense into the room first. Feng Wu had made the incense herself. It was colorless and odorless, but very potent. In less than a minute, the person inside was breathing slowly and steadily. Feng Lu had fallen asleep. Feng Wu jumped into the room, as nimble as a cat. She then threw Feng Lu over her shoulder before heading to where the spiritual beasts were kept. She didn't want her old room ruined by the spiritual beasts. The spiritual beast farm. When the spiritual beasts were mature enough, they would usually be used as personal mounts by members of the clan. There were wolves, bears, cheetahs, and tigers. Which one should she pick? In the end, Feng Wu chose a fire wolf. Looking at Feng Lu, who was fast asleep, Feng Wu took a deep breath. Feng Lu, you wanted to harm my family first. I'm only doing to you what you were trying to do to me. Even that spring breeze powder was from your mother. If you can pray that your mother's spring breeze powder isn't too potent. Otherwise, I'm not sure that you will survive this. Walking into the stable where the fire wolf was kept, Feng Wu buried the spring breeze powder there, then looked back at Feng Lu. Chapter 304, Pay them back in their own coin. Once the spring breeze powder was in place, Feng Wu tossed Feng Lu on the ground. Raising her head, she looked right into the fire wolf's scarlet eyes. Fire wolves were big, strong beasts that were twice the size of a grown man. Their long, flowing fur gave them a majestic look. Feng Wu patted the fire wolf's head. "Sorry about this, buddy." She left after that. Once outside, she carefully closed the door behind her and locked it. The night wind was chilly on her skin as Feng Wu darted one last grim look at Feng Lu. "Your mother was the one who came up with this plan, and that spring breeze powder was put in place by her people. So, I feel no qualms about doing this to you." Feng Wu still had another object in her hand, the black Qingluan venom the size of a pigeon egg. Since she was going to pay them back in their own coin, it went without saying that she would use it on Lady Wang. Something cold glinted in Feng Wu's bright eyes. Soon, her nimble figure disappeared into the darkness. Shortly afterward, she appeared inside Flying Snow Building, where Lady Wang lived. Feng Wu jumped around swiftly in the building and was soon outside Lady Wang's bedchamber. As cautious as ever, Feng Wu didn't use the soporific incense right away, but had to listen first. Someone was snoring loudly inside. She realized that Lady Wang wasn't the only one inside. Feng Yanfeng, her eldest uncle, was also there. About this uncle of hers. Well, Feng Wu couldn't be bothered to comment. Suffice to say, if he had been as kind as he ought to be, Feng Wu's family would never have been driven off into exile. Feng Wu hadn't come back to the imperial capital for revenge. She wouldn't stir things up herself, but she wouldn't hesitate to fight back either if she became a target. This soporific incense which Feng Wu had made herself wasn't available anywhere on the market, no matter how much a buyer was willing to pay. Using a thin straw, Feng Wu blew the incense smoke into the room. She waited 5 minutes for the knockout effect to work, then pushed the door open and marched in. Her uncle and aunt were fast asleep. In a censer a few steps away, some incense was burning. Feng Wu had thought about burying the poison in Lady Wang's kitchen, but then decided otherwise, fearing that she might harm innocent people. Now, under the dim moonlight coming in through the window, Feng Wu fixed her eyes on that censer. The censer was quite sizable, and was only cleaned out every once in a while. Feng Wu's mouth curled into a smile. Lady Wang had a habit of burning incense at night, without which she couldn't sleep. Hence, Feng Wu figured out the perfect way to put this black Qingluan venom to use, grind it into a powder and sprinkle it into the censer. Once that was completed, Feng Wu took a look at her aunt, who was still sound asleep, and smiled. After that, Feng Wu disappeared into the dark again. She was back in Fallen Star Yard in no time. The lights were still on. Qingluan heaved a sigh of relief when she saw Feng Wu. "Miss Wu, how did it go?" The beautiful lady had gone to bed on time like clockwork, and by now, she was already fast asleep. However, Qingluan and Granny Zhao had been worried about Feng Wu and waited up for her. Feng Wu grinned. "Of course everything went as planned. I wouldn't have it any other way." Qingluan and Granny Zhao let out breaths of relief. Feng Wu urged, "Go to bed. We're going to face a tough battle tomorrow." However, after Feng Wu went to bed, little did she know that something very unexpected was about to happen. Mingye, that teenager whom Feng Wu had met in Frozen Forest a while ago. Chapter 305, A Naked Girl. He had finally reached an agreement with his 3 elders and was given permission to stay in the imperial capital for a while. The first person Mingye thought of when he arrived at the imperial capital wasn't Jun Linyuan, his lifelong rival, but Feng Wu. Hence, he began to ask around about the girl. Since her return from the border city, Feng Wu had become the topic of conversation in the city once more. She used to be this genius with the most promising future. However, when she came back this time, her name was connected to slander, rumors, and libel. It was only unfavorable news. Good for nothing, useless, losing her head over love. The people of the city crowned her with all the unpleasant labels they could think of. Needless to say, the Zhou family and the younger generation of the Feng family had a lot to do with the spread of the rumors. Mingye found everything so frustrating. He wouldn't have felt this way if he didn't know Feng Wu, but he did. To him, the girl was smart, wickedly funny, pretty, sharp-tongued, and a free spirit. He simply couldn't bring himself to dislike her. To Mingye, Feng Wu was a brilliant girl second only to the ugly girl. How can these people say such things about little Feng Wu? Do they even know her? I bet Xiao Wu is so upset right now. Mingye's heart went out to Feng Wu. He couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. A slim figure wearing a white robe hid herself in a dark corner with her arms around her knees. Her eyes were teary as she wept into her lap. Such was the picture Mingye drew in his head. He clenched his fists in vexation. No! He had to go to Feng Wu. Hence, Mingye climbed over the wall of the Feng manor the first night after Feng Wu came back. The manor was adequately guarded, but Mingye had 3 very capable elders. With their help, Mingye entered the manor without breaking a sweat. At this hour, almost everyone was in bed. Mingye couldn't find a person to ask for directions even if he wanted to. However, when he focused his attention, he noticed strange noises in the eastern part of the place. Mingye, the professional pleasure seeker, couldn't resist his curiosity. He headed in that direction right away. And what he saw turned out to be an eyesore. In the centermost part of the spiritual beast farm, an animal was snarling, accompanied by the sound of tearing cloth. Tearing cloth. Mingye blushed profusely. It was shameless. Fornication with a beast in the middle of the night, how thirsty did that person have to be? However, he didn't want to ruin the person's night. Covering his ears with both hands, Mingye decided to take flight. The torn clothes then flew over the fence and Mingye saw it under the bright moonlight. What? That dress looked so familiar. He thought he had seen it somewhere before. But where? He had only met 2 girls after leaving his court. One was the ugly girl and the other one was little Feng Wu. Shit! Mingye suddenly remembered all the stories he had heard earlier today. Those people called little Feng Wu a good-for-nothing and said that she was crazy in love. They also said that she wouldn't survive much longer in the imperial capital. Mingye had a sharp nose and he soon recognized the smell of spring breeze powder in the air. Gosh, was that little Feng Wu in there? Had someone set her up? Mingye was exasperated. He rushed in right away, knocking down an entire wall. As soon as he set foot inside, he saw a fair, naked girl under a giant fire wolf. Her face was out of sight, but she had a very slim body. Little Feng Wu. Mingye's eyes widened in astonishment. He charged at the wolf. Chapter 306, Oh God. Mingye charged out and swung his fist at the fire wolf, sending the animal flying backward. It hit a wall and blood gushed out of its mouth. Once the wolf was taken care of, Mingye took the girl's hand. Little Feng Wu. Don't be afraid. I'm here for you. After that, he took off his robe and wrapped it around the girl. Outside, the bright moon was hidden behind thick clouds. Mingye had taken the girl for Feng Wu without giving it another thought. Throwing her on his back, he dashed off and disappeared from the spiritual beast farm in the blink of an eye. Right now, all Feng Lu wore was the robe that Mingye had wrapped around her. Resting on Mingye's back, her firm breasts pressed against the teenager's back. Mingye stiffened right away and his mind went blank. Shit! Mingye's legs almost gave out and his mouth felt dry. Little Feng Wu was really seductive tonight. Did she like him? Mingye had butterflies in his stomach as that thought popped into his head. He smiled like a little kid. Mingye had no idea that he was carrying Feng Lu on his back. Feng Lu, on the other hand, had no idea where she was either. Under the effect of the spring breeze powder, Feng Lu's body felt boneless and extremely aroused. Leaning on Mingye's back, she rested her head on his nape, and Mingye could feel her hot breath on his ears. It felt so sensual, especially with all the moaning she was doing. Mingye thought his head was going to explode. This woman was incredible. Mingye's muscles stiffened. He looked straight ahead and had to use all his strength to keep his breathing steady. Little Feng Wu, I'm warning you. Stop doing this. I have someone I like already. As soon as Mingye began to speak, Feng Lu sensed his virility, which excited her greatly. The delirious girl trembled all over. She forgot about everything else. Wrapping her fair, slim arms around Mingye's neck, she began to kiss and lick him. As a red-blooded virgin, Mingye could never resist such temptation, not to mention that he had taken the girl for Feng Wu, the person that he had been thinking about. Hey! Little Feng Wu. I'm warning you. Stop it. Mingye went completely stiff. Despite his harsh tone, he did nothing to stop her. Feng Lu had surrendered to this male body already. Her bloodshot eyes glistened and her vision had gone blurry. Staying on his back could no longer satisfy her. Hence, she began to struggle, trying to climb over his shoulder. You're impossible. Mingye cursed, but he was rejoicing inside. He had never thought that the haughty little Feng Wu could be this passionate. He knew it. He knew that the girl was secretly in love with him. It was just that when he had brought it up earlier, all his elders had shaken their heads in unison. He was telling the truth. Mingye let the girl climb over his shoulder. Just then, the thick clouds scattered and the moon shone brightly again. Mingye could now see her face clearly. And he felt like he had been struck by a thunderbolt. Oh God! Mingye thought he was going to lose his mind. The half-naked girl wrapped in his robe wasn't little Feng Wu at all. Chapter 307, Claim the Credit. This wasn't little Feng Wu at all. Moreover, Mingye realized that he had met this girl before. Mingye let go and Feng Lu dropped to the ground with a loud thump. But that spring breeze powder was so potent. It was an aphrodisiac as well as a hallucinogenic drug, so powerful that it could make a person lose their head completely. As a result, Feng Lu's first reaction was to wrap herself around Mingye's thigh and try to crawl up, regardless of the painful fall. Mingye was almost driven mad. This woman. What was he supposed to do with this woman? So, the woman that had kissed him and seduced him wasn't little Feng Wu. Mingye was disgusted by the thought of this woman's hands on him. He picked up Feng Lu and wrapped his fingers around her neck. Mingye might look like a goofball around Feng Wu and Jun Linyuan, but he was first and foremost the sacred son of the Dark Court. He was born with violence running through his veins. A cruel and fierce look filled his eyes, which had been bright and mild a moment ago. Feng Lu couldn't breathe. In Mingye's hand, her neck felt as brittle as a toy. Mingye felt like killing her right there and then. Just then, footsteps came from outside. Mingye had his own agenda for coming here and he had only chosen paths hidden by the big leafy trees. Hence, no one on the main path of the house would realize that he was only 10 meters away from them. But it was just before dawn and the sun could rise at any moment. The sky was lightening on the horizon. The Feng Manor's lower-ranked servants were already getting up. Right now, 2 maids of lower rank were walking along the path. Have you heard? Miss Wu is back. Of course I have. It's like the biggest news these days. Sigh, poor Miss Wu. You don't say. Northern Border City is so much better than here. Why did she have to come back? I heard that Lady Wang had them live in Fallen Star Yard. You mean the one with a giant pagoda tree outside the yard? Yes, that one. The 2 cleaning girls walked away as they talked, but an idea struck Mingye, who had hidden behind some rocks. After his head cooled down, he recognized the girl in his arms. It was Feng Lu. She was Feng Wu's sister and he had met her in Northern Border City. Mingye remembered that Feng Wu didn't look to be on good terms with this sister, but after all, they were family. Feng Wu would be mad at him if he strangled Feng Lu to death. He just had to rescue her from a giant fire wolf. He had saved Feng Wu's sister and he was going to claim credit for it. Killing Feng Lu now would do him no good. However, if he brought Feng Lu to Feng Wu, well, Feng Wu would owe him a favor. Mingye was exhilarated. According to those maids, Feng Wu lived in Fallen Star Yard now, which had a big pagoda tree outside. Fallen Star Yard wasn't easy to find, but a yard with a big pagoda tree in the front was easy to spot. Mingye jumped onto the wall, and found the place after a quick look around. Once he had figured that out, Mingye picked up Feng Lu and headed for Fallen Star Yard right away. Dawn had yet to break and it was that time of day when everyone was still sound asleep. Crack. Chapter 308, Black-Hearted. There was a faint crackling sound. Feng Wu woke up with a start. She narrowed her eyes in the darkness, and a sharp dagger appeared in her hand. Who was it? Who would show up at this hour? It was too early for Lady Wang, for she wanted to ruin the reputation of Feng Wu's branch of the clan, so she would wait until everyone was up. So, who could it be? Feng Wu waited by the door, the dagger in her hand glinting coldly. Squeak! The door opened and a figure entered stealthily. Right at that moment, Feng Wu pressed the blade to the person's throat. Blood squirted out. Mingye's stomach lurched. He hadn't expected such a threat. Tossing Feng Lu onto the ground, he quickly reached for the dagger with his right hand. However, Feng Wu was one step ahead of him. In the dark, she circled around to Mingye's side, using a move from Phoenix Dance, then stabbed down at an acupoint on his waist. Just then, the moon shone into the room through the open door. Under the silver moonlight, Feng Wu made out the teenager's face. Mingye! Feng Wu cried out in surprise. Little Feng Wu! Mingye was even more surprised. Touching the shallow cut on his throat, he couldn't believe that Feng Wu had just given him that wound. This girl really was a little tiger deep down. However, Mingye wasn't what attracted Feng Wu's attention now, for under the moonlight, she spotted Feng Lu on the ground. Feng Lu was still wrapped in Mingye's robe. The belt had loosened, exposing most of her breasts, which looked rather fair and tender under the silver moonlight. She couldn't stop moaning. Feng Wu was baffled. Her plans always worked perfectly, for she always made sure to consider the tiniest details in advance, but could someone please explain to her, what was Feng Lu doing here? The girl had been left with the fire wolf. Why was she here now? Feng Wu narrowed her eyes and looked Mingye up and down with an indecipherable expression in her eyes. Mingye was here to claim credit. Without an invitation, he sat down in a chair, crossed his legs in a conceited manner, raised his chin, and gave Feng Wu a sidelong glance. Little Feng Wu, see that? Feng Wu nodded. Yup. Mingye was gloating and failed to notice the conflicted look on Feng Wu's face. He went on flaunting his achievement. I came to your manor tonight to take a walk. Thinking that little Feng Wu would turn cocky if she knew that he was here tonight just for her, Mingye made up a random excuse. I see that young Master Yu is enjoying life, Feng Wu said in a low voice, revealing none of her conflicting emotions. Yup. Crossing his legs at the knees, Mingye went on. I was walking around when I heard something in the spiritual beast farm. I went to have a look and I was shocked. Your family's fire wolf was trying to do dirty things to this girl. Feng Wu took a deep breath. Then, Mingye couldn't tell her that he had mistaken Feng Lu for Feng Wu and that the girl had tried to stick her tongue in his mouth, so he said, I pushed that wolf away and saw that, oh my god, the girl who had almost been ravished was your sister. Feng Wu smacked her forehead. Mingye grew more excited as he went on. I was astonished. I'm your friend, I guess. And I couldn't just stand there and let my friend's sister be ruined by an animal. What kind of person would that make me? Right? Chapter 309, Because You're Feng Wu. Gazing at Feng Wu, Mingye pressed for a reply. Despite her urge to punch him in the face, Feng Wu took a deep breath and squeezed out a smile. Thank you, I guess. You guessed correctly. Mingye was thrilled to hear a thank you from Feng Wu, but he feigned a displeased tone. I assume that your sister wouldn't have gone to the fire wolf and tried to fornicate with it voluntarily. Feng Wu said, no. And that fire wolf wouldn't have dragged your sister there by itself either? Feng Wu said, no. I recognized the smell of spring breeze powder in the air. Mingye darted an unhurried look at Feng Wu. Do you know what that is? Feng Wu said. You do realize that I'm a medicine refiner, right? That's right, you're a medicine refiner. But you know what? I'm pretty sure that someone set your sister up. Mingye frowned. Who would do such a horrible thing to a young woman? Making her fornicate with a spiritual beast? That's just, well, your sister would have been ruined if it hadn't been for me. Feng Wu clenched her fists. Yes. How evil is the person behind all this? They're so black-hearted. That person is rotten to the core, and I bet they're too toxic inside to have any children of their own. Mingye said indignantly. Feng Wu blanched and blushed, not sure what expression she should have on her face. She took a deep breath and said nothing. She felt like punching someone. Why are you drawing in your breath all the time? Mingye looked at her in confusion. Feng Wu gave him a smile, which was more like a grimace. Mingye went back to talking about Feng Wu. I know you and your sister don't get along, but she's still your sister and I saved her. How are you going to thank me for that? Ha ha ha. Feng Wu was having a hard time controlling her temper and she couldn't do it anymore. She had never been in the habit of stretching herself thin. Since she couldn't take it anymore, she decided to tell him everything. Hence, she turned her gaze on Mingye and said in a cold voice, it was me. Mingye looked bewildered. What was you? I did it. Feng Wu gave Mingye a half-smile. That black-hearted person you're talking about was me. Ah! Mingye had rarely been shocked growing up, but what Feng Wu said made him jump. He shuddered and sat there as his mouth fell open. Feng Wu gave him an indifferent sidelong glance. Now that the truth was out, Mingye should be on his way, right? After all, he was so appalled by the person that had plotted the whole thing. Mingye stared at Feng Wu unblinkingly, then he said angrily, what did she do to you? He didn't ask why and he didn't accuse Feng Wu of being so malicious. Instead, he was furious about whatever Feng Wu had done to Feng Wu. Feng Wu stared at Mingye. What? What did she do? Are you hurt? Any losses? The concern in Mingye's voice was genuine. That wasn't what Feng Wu had expected and she was very surprised. From Mingye's tone earlier, the guy found the person behind all this repulsive. However, when she admitted what she had done, he worried about her well-being, instead of condemning her. You believe me? Feng Wu was too bewildered to say anything else. Of course I do. Mingye glared at Feng Wu. I couldn't have cared less about her if she wasn't your sister. That fire wolf could eat her whole and I wouldn't even blink. I only saved her because she's your sister. Chapter 310, Mingye is pissed. Feng Wu would be lying if she said she wasn't touched. All the silly things Mingye had done looked very adorable now. Don't you think that I'm a bad person? Feng Wu kept her gaze on Mingye. Mingye darted an unconcerned look at Feng Wu. Since when were you ever a good person? Feng Wu was speechless. Mingye went on. Good person or bad person, you're little Feng Wu and I'm always on your side. Feng Wu was speechless. What universe had she saved in her past life to earn such trust from Mingye? They barely knew each other and she had even tricked Mingye multiple times when she was disguised as the ugly girl. Feng Wu decided that from now on, she would be nicer to Mingye. Hence, she told Mingye about Feng Lu's original plan. Mingye flared up after he heard the whole thing. What? That spring breeze powder was meant for Feng Wu? And it really could have been Feng Wu under that fire wolf? Mingye was furious. He went up to Feng Lu and grabbed her by her neck. His grip was so tight that Feng Wu could hear the cracking sound Feng Lu's neck made. She rushed over in a hurry and took Mingye's hand. Stop. Mingye glared at Feng Wu. I'm gonna kill her. Feng Wu snapped, there are a million ways to kill her, but you can't strangle her, especially not in my room. Mingye met Feng Wu's gaze. Are you asking me to keep her alive? Feng Wu nodded. For the time being. Just then, she heard some noise outside. Feng Wu was startled, for that meant that Qiling and Granny Zhao were up. She would have so much explaining to do if they found Mingye here. Hence, Feng Wu told Mingye, take Feng Lu and leave now. But, Mingye was going to say something else when Feng Wu cut him off with a shake of her head. Get Feng Lu out of here and we'll talk about it later. Lady Wang would be here soon to search the house, and when that happened, get her out of here? Mingye nodded. All right. I'll take care of that first and come back to talk to you. Feng Wu wanted to tell him not to come back after getting rid of Feng Lu, but before she could say so, Mingye left as quickly as a gust of wind. Feng Wu was speechless. Mingye was very pissed as he jumped over the wall of Fallen Star Yard. He wasn't angry at Feng Wu, but himself. How could he have been so stupid? Although he meant well, he had ruined Feng Wu's plan. Judging from the look on her face, she must have found him so annoying. The more he thought about it, the more vexed he became. So, what should he do with Feng Lu? Toss her back to that fire wolf? Mingye regretted hurting that wolf so badly. He had ruined the animal's male parts, sending Feng Lu back there wouldn't change anything. Hence, Mingye wandered along the corridor in the manor with Feng Lu in one hand. Wait! Mingye heard the groaning and moaning of a couple when he walked past a courtyard. So, someone was doing it there. How about leaving Feng Lu here? At that thought, Mingye jumped into the yard, followed the sounds, and entered a room through a window. By then, the couple had finished and were fast asleep. Mingye then saw a face he recognized. He only knew a handful of people from the Feng clan, and he happened to run into every single one of them tonight. Chapter 311, I'm doing everyone a favor. The man sleeping there was none other than Feng Yiran himself. Seeing Feng Lu twisting and moaning in his arms and Feng Yiran sleeping soundly in bed, Mingye decided that after hearing what Feng Lu had plotted against Feng Wu, he would get revenge for Feng Wu by leaving Feng Lu here in her brother's bed. Growing up in the Dark Court, Mingye had been deeply influenced by the dark and deviant deeds he saw there. He had kept it from Feng Wu, but that didn't make him any kinder or purer in heart. Mingye moved the woman sleeping next to Feng Yiran to the floor, then tossed Feng Lu onto the bed. He was about to leave when he saw his robe on Feng Lu. His stomach lurched. He had been so close to leaving such an important belonging on Feng Lu. If that happened, he would never be able to explain himself. Mingye then removed the robe from Feng Lu. He was going to burn it, but he wouldn't do it here. Seeing the naked girl wrap herself around the teenager, and the room was too dark to see the faces clearly, Mingye's mouth curled into a wicked grin. He left the room immediately after that. Mingye was so proud of what he had done that he thought he would finally be able to report to Feng Wu and claim credit for himself. Hence, he returned to Feng Wu, looking elated. Feng Wu had an ominous feeling when she saw the gloating look on the teenager's face. You got rid of Feng Lu? Yup. Where? Take a wild guess. Mingye wanted to whet her appetite. Feng Wu said grumpily, judging by what I know of you so far, you should have thrown her back to the fire wolf. Mingye rubbed his nose. I didn't. He would have if he hadn't injured that wolf so severely earlier. You didn't? Feng Wu was surprised. I really didn't. Mingye sounded very pleased. I put her somewhere you'll never guess. Feng Wu looked at Mingye, finding the teenager rather unreliable. I'll never guess. Feng Wu suddenly had an idea. The 5th courtyard to the north of Fallen Star Yard, with a vermilion iron gate. Did you leave her there? Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. What? Mingye cried out in surprise. Little Feng Wu, can you read minds? How did you know? Well, I left her in Feng Yuan's bed. Ha ha ha. Feng Wu was speechless. That's so. I was doing her a favor, said Mingye matter-of-factly. She's inhaled spring breeze powder, without relief, she'll implode and die. Who else can help her like that in the Feng clan? Feng Wu was speechless. Without a man to sleep with, she'll die. I was saving her life. Mingye said presumptuously. I'm doing everyone a favor. Feng Wu was speechless. She dashed out of her room without another word. Feng Wu had thought about getting Feng Yuan involved when she learned about Lady Wang's plan. But while Feng Yuan wasn't a good person, he hadn't tried to kill Feng Wu so far, at least not that Feng Wu knew of. Hence, Feng Wu had left Feng Yuan out. And that was why she had thrown Feng Lu into the Fire Wolf stable. As it turned out, Feng Yuan had been dragged into this after all, and Feng Wu wanted to stop it before it was too late. However, when she snuck into Feng Yuan's courtyard, she heard the unmistakable sounds of a man and a woman doing you-know-what. Chapter 312, Something's Terribly Wrong. On hearing the sounds, Feng Wu knew that she was too late. Rubbing her nose, Feng Wu quickly returned to Fallen Star Yard before anyone could spot her. Seeing Feng Wu's blushing cheeks, Mingye knew that Feng Lu had done what the drug was supposed to make her do. So? They're sleeping together, are they? Mingye gloated. Humph. That's what she gets for trying to harm you. I'd like to see her face when she wakes up. Feng Wu smacked her forehead. Flying snow building. Preoccupied, Lady Wang woke up earlier than she usually did, before the sun had fully risen. Slowly opening her eyes, she looked at that pale blue sky outside and smiled a little when she went over her plan in her head. The incense was still burning. Smoke curled up and a faint fragrance filled the air. Lady Wang was in an even better mood. She had no idea that Feng Wu would be so easy to handle this time. She got up and let her maids help her dress. The lilac color of her clothes made her look radiant. Darting a casual look at Feng Yanfeng, who was still fast asleep, Lady Wang grinned malevolently. Just then, the hurried footsteps of a maid came from outside. Master, my lady, something's wrong. She was a low-ranked maid who worked in Lady Wang's place and had a very forgettable face. However, no one cared what she looked like at the moment, for everyone was surprised by how flustered she appeared. She was part of Lady Wang's plan, but Feng Yanfeng didn't know that. Waking up with a start, he glared at the maid, whose forehead was covered with sweat. Feng Yanfeng found the maid's face unfamiliar, but didn't think much of it. He was too angry at being woken up like this. Glaring at the maid, he said, "Throw this woman out." "Master, something's wrong." "Something's terribly wrong." The maid blanched and darted a pleading look at Lady Wang. Of course, Lady Wang was going to make this as big a scene as possible. She sat down next to Feng Yanfeng and straightened his clothes with her pretty hands. Meanwhile, she said softly, "My lord, Ruyue needs to be disciplined for shouting all the time, but look at all the sweat on her face. I think something big must have happened. How about we hear her out and then we can decide if we should punish her or not." Feng Yanfeng liked Lady Wang enough to hear her out. At those words, he turned his sharp gaze on Ruyue. "Speak." "Master." Ruyue was shaking with excitement. "I walked past Fallen Star Yard just then and I heard Miss Wu." "Miss Wu?" Feng Yanfeng nearly jumped out of bed. Miss Wu, as in Feng Wu, the once genius whom they had deemed so promising before. Feng Wu's back. Feng Yanfeng hadn't been told. Lady Wang rubbed her forehead. Yes, they arrived yesterday. I was so exhausted from helping them settle in that I fell asleep before you came back. That's why I haven't told you yet. And they're living in Fallen Star Yard? Feng Yanfeng frowned. As the current head of the clan, Feng Yanfeng knew Fallen Star Yard's history better than anyone else, and he knew how dilapidated that place was. Lady Wang smiled bitterly. I would love to give them a place in the center of the manor, but that way, so many people would walk past their house every day. My lord, as you may know, ever since what happened 5 years ago, Xiao Wu has. Chapter 313, No. Please stop. She can't let it go, and I'm worried that she won't be able to handle all the pointing fingers. That's why I let them live in Fallen Star Yard in a remote part of the manor. Feng Yanfeng looked less displeased now. Lady Wang took the opportunity and went on. My lord, if you don't like that arrangement, I'll move them out of Fallen Star Yard and give them. That won't be necessary. Feng Yanfeng waved her off. You did the right thing. Feng Wu is useless now. She is of no help to this family, and she's lucky to even have food on her table. There's no need to give her favorable treatment. Lady Wang looked troubled. But Xiao Wu may not be happy. Why should we care how she feels? Feng Yanfeng smiled cruelly. Does she think she's still the same Feng Wu from 5 years ago? That settled Lady Wang's mind. Seeing Feng Yanfeng's attitude, she could do a lot of things without hesitation from now on. Right. What did you say about Miss Wu? Feng Yanfeng finally remembered that Ryue was still kneeling there, and he darted a cold glance at her. Master. Something's happened. I saw a man going into Fallen Star Yard. And he went into Miss Wu's bedroom. What? Feng Yanfeng almost bolted up. Are you sure? Yes. I saw it with my own eyes. I can swear on my life. Ryue made her tone very righteous and brave. Feng Yanfeng could no longer stay in bed. He rushed to the door right away. My lord, slow down. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. Lady Wang tugged at Feng Yanfeng's sleeve and said in a worried tone, Xiao Wu grew up around us and we know her well. She's a good kid. She'd never do anything to tarnish the reputation of our clan. The more Lady Wang said, the angrier Feng Yanfeng became. She's been in northern border city for 5 years, who knows what filthy habits she picked up there. I need to see for myself. Come. Let's have a look. Feng Yanfeng threw a robe over his shoulders, then hurried off. Lady Wang and Granny Gui exchanged looks and both smiled in satisfaction. They hadn't expected it to be so easy to ruin Feng Wu. My lord, wait. My lord, please don't get too cross. We have to watch out for your health. Lady Wang followed Feng Yanfeng out in a hurry. Fallen Star Yard. The yard probably had something against Feng Wu. Feng Lu had only broken the old door yesterday, and the plank in it had only just been replaced before Feng Yanfeng arrived. Standing outside Fallen Star Yard, Feng Yanfeng's anger had subsided a little and he was able to think. Could it be a misunderstanding? Was Feng Wu that kind of girl? Was it appropriate for him to question her like this just because of something a random maid said? Just as Feng Yanfeng was standing there in hesitation, he heard mumbling inside, which seemed to suggest something erotic. It hurts, sob, hurts, slow down. No, please don't. I can't, no, sob. That was such a seductive voice. Feng Yanfeng felt the blood rush to his head. They were indeed daughter and father, for Feng Yanfeng entered the courtyard in exactly the same manner as Feng Lu. Bang! The door was kicked open. There was no one in the yard. Feng Yanfeng rushed in and kicked the door to a room open. The voice was coming from there. Lady Wang followed him in a hurry, lifting her skirt off the ground. She was panting from all the running. Chapter 314, What the hell? My lord! My lord! Please calm down. Xiao Wu only lost her head for a moment. However, Lady Wang was baffled by what she saw. This wasn't what she had in mind. Feng Wu sat in a chair with one sleeve rolled up to her elbow. Qingluan was crouched down by her side and applying a purple potion to Feng Wu's fair wrist. The potion was too dark for them to make out the wound, but judging from Feng Wu's teary eyes, it looked rather painful. Feng Wu wasn't the only one in the room. Her mother and Granny Zhao were also there. The beautiful lady cried with Feng Wu. Holding Feng Wu's hand, she sobbed, "Xiao Wu, sob. My poor Xiao Wu, why is this happening? What the hell was this?" Lady Wang was completely at a loss. What happened to fornication? And what about that man Feng Wu was supposed to be sleeping with? Where was he? Lady Wang felt as if a bucket of cold water had been dumped over her head and she was chilled to the bone. She stole a glance at Feng Yanfeng, whose face was livid and the look in his eyes indecipherable. He couldn't keep his eyes off Feng Wu's beautiful mother. Lady Wang felt like she was going to lose her mind. Rage rushed through her and she suddenly had the urge to rip off Feng Wu's and the beautiful lady's faces. Feng Wu looked up at Feng Yanfeng with her innocent eyes. "Uncle, why are you here?" Feng Yanfeng was finally able to shift his gaze away from his sister-in-law. Looking into Feng Wu's innocent, teary eyes, he was utterly embarrassed. Carried away by that maid's words, he was here to catch Feng Wu in the act. Feng Wu blinked at Feng Yanfeng. "Uncle, did you hear about my injury and came all the way here to visit me?" "Yes. That's right." Feng Yanfeng snapped out of his trance and looked like what a gracious uncle should. "Xiao Wu, a maid told me about your wounded hand this morning. How are you doing? Does it hurt?" Feng Wu nodded weakly at Feng Yanfeng's phony cordiality. "It hurts." Feng Yanfeng didn't know what to say after that. Feng Wu then smiled through her tears. "But I'm so touched. Uncle, I see that you broke my door because you're worried about me so much. My burnt wrist feels much better now." Feng Yanfeng rubbed his nose. Of course he couldn't admit that he had broken her door because he was so eager to catch the imaginary man. He could only smile and try to make up for it. "Xiao Wu, you've just come back and I know you're short of a lot of necessities. I'll tell your aunt to help you with them. She'll make sure you and your widowed mum live here comfortably." "Widowed mum?" Feng Wu pondered over the expression. Her father was only missing and no one was sure what had happened to him. Was her uncle so eager to come to that conclusion? Feng Wu found those words highly suspicious. However, she still smiled at Feng Yanfeng. "Uncle, you're so nice to us. I don't know how we're going to survive without your help. We left northern border city with a lot of belongings, but we ran into some bandits on the way here and we narrowly escaped death. But our luggage was..." The beautiful lady was reminded of all the clothes and jewelry she had lost during the journey, and she wept. She looked as pretty as pear blossoms bathed in the rain, and one felt like throwing their arms around her to comfort her. Chapter 315, Quickly. Feng Yanfeng couldn't peel his eyes away from the beautiful lady, whose crying had evoked a desire inside him to protect her. With a wave of his hand, he said, "I'll have your aunt send you 5,000 taels of silver later so that you can get everything you need to live comfortably." 5,000 taels of silver? That almost gave Lady Wang a heart attack. The idle Lord Feng obviously had zero idea of the costs of running a household. 5,000 silver taels was enough to sustain the entire clan for 2 months. "My lord," Lady Wang was going to interfere, when Feng Yanfeng darted a cold, harsh glance at her, which chilled Lady Wang to the bone. Lady Wang's stomach lurched and she couldn't utter a word. She couldn't believe this. Why hadn't the spring breeze powder worked? Lady Wang darted a questioning look at Granny Gui, asking the latter with her eyes if she had really buried the stuff there. Granny Gui was sick with anxiety. Of course she had. She had done it herself and she made sure that it was where it should be. Just then, someone cried out outside. There's a man. He's getting away. Ryue, who had tagged along, almost fainted from what was going on. When no one was looking, she quietly backed out of the room and tried to sneak off. For if she didn't, she wouldn't live to see another sunrise. Lady Wang would get rid of her to tie up the loose ends and the master would want her dead for delivering false information. Ryue was going to flee, when she saw a figure dash out of Fallen Star Yard and run away quickly, but not quickly enough to avoid detection. Lady Wang turned around just in time to spot that figure. A man. There really was a man hiding in Fallen Star Yard. Exasperated, Lady Wang grabbed Feng Yanfeng and dragged him along with her. Feng Yanfeng saw no such figure and didn't want to leave. However, Lady Wang was very certain of herself. Quickly! We'll know what's going on when we catch the guy and interrogate him. Quickly! Feng Yanfeng had come with some guards, who were all waiting for Feng Yanfeng's instructions. They would follow only their master's command. Feng Yanfeng hesitated. That figure indeed looked suspicious. Was Feng Wu really having inappropriate relations with a man? Or could it have been his sister-in-law? Feng Yanfeng lost his composure at that thought. Maybe he's a thief. Catch him. After that, Feng Yanfeng dashed off, leading the way. Lady Wang was set on ruining Feng Wu's reputation this morning, and she had brought quite a few people with her. Right now, every single one of them followed Feng Yanfeng and Lady Wang out. Fallen Star Yard, which had been boisterous only a moment ago, grew very quiet. Miss, Qingluan turned to Feng Wu, looking worried. No one but Feng Wu knew the role Mingye played here and everyone became very concerned. The beautiful lady was the only exception. She was still holding Feng Wu's arm and weeping non-stop. Feng Wu was speechless. Her mother was the only one here that thought Feng Wu's wrist had really been burnt. Feng Wu turned her attention back to Qingluan. It's finally getting interesting. Feng Wu smiled confidently. We shouldn't miss out on the fun. With that, Feng Wu rose to her feet and asked the others, anyone interested? Follow me if you are. Granny Zhao smiled mildly. Qingluan, go with Miss Wu. I'll stay here with my lady. But... Chapter 316, So Baffled. Feng Wu and Qingluan ran after the crowd. After all the disappointment, Lady Wang had finally gotten the evidence she was hoping for and she wasn't going to rest until she caught the secret lover. She would interrogate the man under torture until he confessed. Only then could she make Feng Wu's scandal stick. At that moment, that figure disappeared into a courtyard. The courtyard was called Whistling Pines, and it was where Feng Yuan lived. As the most capable man in the crowd, Feng Yanfeng was in the lead, with Lady Wang and the others behind him. Feng Yanfeng narrowed his eyes. Was his wife telling the truth, then? Had Feng Wu really done that unspeakable thing? If that was the case, he was going to kill Feng Wu himself. Meanwhile, in Whistling Pines Yard. Feng Yuan, who had fallen asleep after a passionate night, still had a smile on his face. Since when was Shui, his concubine maid, this seductive and demanding? He could barely get it up after 2 rounds in a row, but she was still asking for more. More, please, more. Her voice was so enchanting that he thought he was going to melt from it. When he finally began to wake up, Feng Yuan was suddenly struck by something. That voice. That didn't sound like Shui, but more like Feng Lu, his sister. No, what was he thinking? How could he think of Feng Lu at a time like this? Feng Yuan opened his eyes and turned toward the window, trying to see what time it was. His eyes then caught sight of a familiar figure on the floor. A naked girl lay there on her back. She had a slim body, fair skin, and a comely face. It was none other than Shui, his concubine maid. Shui? What was she doing lying on the floor? Wait, if Shui was there, who was he holding in his arms? Feng Yuan's stomach turned and an ominous feeling washed over him. He couldn't even summon the courage to look down. More. I want more, ah. The girl caressed his chest with her slim fingers. Feng felt sick and got goosebumps all over. He shifted his gaze from her fingers, to her wrist, then up her arm. And slowly to her face. Oh God! Feng heard a rumbling sound in his ears and he felt all his blood rush to his head. Lying there in his arms was none other than Feng Lu, his sister from the same parents. His biological sister, Feng Lu. At that moment, Feng brain stopped working. So he had been sleeping with. Feng looked down and saw smears of blood on his sheet. He shut his eyes, wishing that he could pass out now. What on earth was going on? Why was Shui on the floor? Why was Feng Lu in his bed? And how could he have done such a thing with Feng Lu? Feng Lu tried to get back into Feng arms, but Feng pushed her away. Agitated as he was, Feng pushed a little too hard and Feng Lu bumped into the hard wooden headboard. It made her see stars for a moment. Feng Lu opened her sleepy eyes at the pain and gradually woke up. By now, the sun had risen and the room was brightly lit. Hence, Feng Lu saw the face in front of her clearly. It was Feng her own brother. Feng didn't have any clothes on and was eyeing her with an indecipherable look on his face. Feng Lu looked down and saw that she was as naked as he was. Chapter 317, Ah! Where are my clothes? One look at all the marks all over her body and she knew what had happened. Feng Lu's head went completely blank and she sat there dazed, as if she had been struck by a thunderbolt. A few seconds later Feng Lu came back to herself and opened her mouth to scream. However, Feng covered her mouth before she could make any sound. The look in his eyes was cruel and murderous. Do you want to die? Feng whispered in a threatening voice. Tears rolled down Feng Lu's cheeks. Are you trying to bring disgrace and ruin upon both of us? Feng Lu wailed and shook her head repeatedly. Feng stared into her eyes. I'm going to let you speak now, but no screaming. Feng Lu nodded. Feng let go and Feng Lu wrapped herself in the duvet, moving as far away from him as possible. She hissed at Feng between broken sobs, Why? Why did you do this to me? You've ruined my future. How am I going to marry the crown prince now? Feng only found her ridiculous. Marry Jun Linyuan? Where did she get that idea from? He snarled back. Look around. This is Whistling Pine's yard and you're in my bed. I was going to ask you, why did you get into my bed in the middle of the night and act like a slut? I thought you were Shui, so I slept with you. How is that my fault? That successfully shut Feng Lu up. She went back to weeping. Feng said in vexation, What happened has happened and we can't do anything about that now. Pull yourself together. You need to leave before anyone else finds out. Feng Lu wouldn't accept the reality. Feng Lu has to be 1,000 times more miserable than I am now. She has to live in hell. How does Feng Lu have anything to do with this? Feng was bewildered. Feng Lu smirked. Mother buried spring breeze powder in Feng Lu's yard and I had Kaiyue open up the spiritual beast farm and lure the animals to Fallen Star Yard. Feng Lu is ruined. Feng frowned. Would someone as clever as Feng Lu walk into a trap that easily? Could what happened to Feng Lu have something to do with Feng Lu? Feng was still trying to figure it out when he heard shuffling footsteps outside. Thief! Close the door. Close all the doors. No one is leaving this yard. Feng Where's Feng Judging by the sounds, there were a lot of people coming. Feng and Feng Lu were dumbfounded. If Feng Lu had put on her clothes and snuck out as soon as she woke up, they wouldn't be stuck here now. However, those people outside were about to come in, get dressed. Quickly! Feng freaked out. If someone walked in now and saw the state they were in. Both of them would be ruined. Feng Lu was also freaking out. The footsteps moved closer and picked up speed. She was already feeling so much dread to begin with. My skirt? Where's my skirt? God, I can't find my robe. Feng Lu was so flustered that she couldn't do anything but stand around and shed tears. A voice rang out just outside the room at that moment. Where's Feng Yiran? Someone was coming in. Without thinking, Feng Lu jumped onto the bed, lying flat on her stomach and covering herself up with the duvet. Feng Yiran was equally startled. He only had time to throw Shui onto the bed before the door to his room was kicked open. Feng Yanfeng rushed in, followed by everyone else. Feng Yiran was shocked. Lady Wang asked in exasperation, Yiran, where is he? He who? Chapter 318, There's No Thief. Feng Yiran blanched. Had his parents heard about what he and Feng Lu had done, and were here to catch them in the act? If that was the case, was he going to be ruined now? Feng Yiran cared for nothing more than his image, and his reputation had always been his biggest concern. The thief! Lady Wang cried out. We followed him all the way here and saw him run into Whistling Pine's yard. We came after him and he was last seen outside your door. He must have entered your room. Feng Yiran clenched his fists. He finally realized that this was a trap aimed at him and Feng Lu. Rising to his feet and throwing a robe around his shoulders, he said diffidently, Mother, you must be mistaken. I saw no such thief. That's not possible. I saw it with my own eyes. Lady Wang wouldn't give up. You must have been asleep and missed him. You lot, search the room. Hiding under the duvet, Feng Lu felt like crying. That was her own mother. Couldn't she just leave? Why did she have to search the room? She would find her own daughter if she kept doing this. Feng Lu wouldn't have been so flustered if it were any normal day, but she was naked now and she was in her brother's bed. If someone lifted the duvet. Feng Lu trembled in anger and exasperation. However, all Lady Wang could think of now was finding that thief and bringing a host of fabricated charges against Feng Wu. No one could persuade her otherwise. Find him. Don't leave any stone unturned. I must find him. Lady Wang burned with rage. Feng Yiran looked at her coldly. Mother, this is my bedroom. Please leave. Feng Wu and Chilling sauntered in at that moment. After hearing Feng Yiran's words, Feng Wu smiled at Lady Wang. Aunt, there's no thief. You must be mistaken. Lady Wang was furious. She had to catch that thief. My lady, we've searched the entire Whistling Pine's yard and we found no one. A guard came in from outside and informed Lady Wang in a low voice. My lady, we've searched the bedroom. There's no thief here, another guard reported. Feng Wu smiled. Aunt, see? There's no thief. It's really just a misunderstanding. Feng Yanfeng hesitated. Was Feng Wu telling the truth? Was there no such thief? Searching his memory, he realized that he hadn't seen any such figure himself, but only thought there was one because his wife insisted. Lady Wang felt uneasy. If she couldn't find the thief, the others would think that she had plotted against Feng Wu's family, and that was an accusation she didn't want to be associated with. Feng Yanfeng frowned. Well, since we didn't find any thief, it must be a misunderstanding. Everyone, go back to whatever you were doing. After that, he walked out first. The rest of the servants and guards followed him out. But not Lady Wang. The look her husband gave her was filled with disappointment when he left. At that thought, Lady Wang turned to stare at the duvet on the bed. That wasn't right. Yiran was up and Shui, his concubine maid, was sleeping on the other side of the bed. Why did it look like there was something under the duvet? Ah! An idea struck Lady Wang. It was the thief. It had to be him. He had hidden under the duvet and that was why no one had found him. Chapter 319, Their Brother and Sister. At that thought, Lady Wang rushed to the bed, grabbed a corner of the duvet, and yanked it off the bed. Feng Yuan's head went blank. He didn't expect Lady Wang to move so abruptly. What happened next was quicker than words could describe. With all her strength, Lady Wang pulled the duvet off the bed with a smirk. "Gotcha! You're not going anywhere." The moment Lady Wang removed the duvet from the bed, Feng Lu looked over her shoulder and met Lady Wang's gaze. Both women screamed when their eyes met. "Ah!" Only then did Feng Yuan realize what had happened. He rushed over and shoved his mother to the side. Lady Wang's back smashed into the closet and the pain brought tears to her eyes. However, she couldn't feel it. She could hardly breathe, for the physical pain was nothing compared to the pain inside. That was Feng Lu. Feng Lu was naked in Feng Yuan's bed. They were brother and sister. Feng Yuan regretted it as soon as he pushed Lady Wang away. He hurried over, trying to help her to her feet. However, his mother only glared at him. The ferocity in her eyes reminded him of a she-wolf. It was Feng Wu's doing. Feng Yuan ground his teeth, turning his cold gaze on Feng Wu. Lady Wang turned to look at Feng Wu as well. Because of all the noise they made, all those that had left came back. Feng Yanfeng was the first to enter the room. He frowned at Lady Wang. "What's going on?" Lady Wang cried in silence. In her shaken state, she looked rather appealing, and Feng Yanfeng softened right away. At an angle her husband couldn't see, Lady Wang stared at Feng Wu with a murderous look in her eyes. By now, she had figured out everything. Feng Wu had found out about the spring breeze powder which Lady Wang had gotten Granny Gui to bury in Fallen Star Yard. Instead of making a scene out of it, Feng Wu had kept her silence and used the drug on Feng Lu instead. Her poor girl. Lady Wang shed more tears. Lady Wang had dropped the duvet and Feng Lu hid back under it. Fearing that the others might try to move the duvet, Lady Wang sat down on the bed, shielding the duvet from sight. It's nothing. I tripped and bumped into the closet. And it hurts." Lady Wang wept weakly. She couldn't risk telling Feng Yanfeng. For she knew very well that once Feng Yanfeng saw Feng Lu in this state, he would explode. When that happened, both Feng Yuan and Feng Lu would be finished. "There really isn't any thief. It was my fault. Can we go back now?" Lady Wang wrapped her soft arms around Feng Yanfeng's neck and sobbed quietly. Lady Wang could be quite flirtatious when she tried, and Feng Yanfeng was mesmerized right away. He nodded. "Sure, let me carry you." The others scattered after Lady Wang and Feng Yanfeng left. Feng Wu was going to leave with Chilling when she heard Feng Yuan's cold, malicious voice behind her. "Feng Wu, you must be so proud of yourself." Chilling felt the skin on the back of her neck tingle, as if a venomous snake was staring at her. A cold sensation ran down her spine and she was terrified. She couldn't help but look at her mistress. Was it going to get ugly now? Feng Wu paused, turned around, and smiled at Feng Yuan. "Feng Yuan, I have no idea what you're talking about." By now, all the others had left and Feng Lu jumped out of bed. She glared at Feng Wu with eyes that could spit fire before charging at her like a furious little lion. "Feng Wu, I'm gonna..." Chapter 320, Feng Wu. "I'm going to kill you. Feng Wu. I'm going to kill you." Feng Lu drew out a sword that was hanging on the wall and stabbed at Feng Wu. The blade glinted. Feng Wu tilted her head and easily dodged the strike. Grabbing Feng Lu's hand which held the sword with her own right hand, Feng Wu smiled teasingly. "Are you sure you don't need to put some clothes on before killing me?" Those words were like a hard slap to Feng Lu's face. Her head spun and she was too furious to see things clearly. Feng Wu barely used any strength and Feng Lu fell back on the bed at her push. Feng Yuan kept his murderous gaze on Feng Wu. But Feng Wu wasn't threatened. She only darted a casual look at them. Incest, how exotic. You had fun, then you try to blame it on me. Aren't you afraid that I'll tell everyone what you did? Feng Lu gripped the sheets so tightly that her knuckles went white. Feng Yuan thought the same thing. He was considering the possibility of killing Feng Wu. Feng Wu smiled at the look on Feng Yuan's face. You're thinking about it, aren't you? Want to have a go? She then recalled when Feng Yuan and Feng Lu had left her family to the wolves. Well, Feng Yuan was anything but innocent. The more emboldened and cool-headed Feng Wu appeared, the more hesitant Feng Yuan became. He recalled on their way back to the imperial capital when he had tried to deal with Feng Wu but had been poisoned. Although this unruly girl didn't know any martial arts, she had more than enough tricks to make up for it. If he couldn't take her down once and for all, things would get nasty, putting him in a very difficult position. Hence, he had to placate Feng Wu for now. Let's talk. Feng Yuan put away his murderous intention for the time being. Feng Wu smirked. You're in no position to negotiate with me. Get your mother. Feng Wu had everything planned down to the very last detail. Despite the unexpected episode with Mingye, she had still managed to get the result she wanted. After that, Feng Wu left with chilling. Tears welled up in Feng Lu's eyes. She had never felt so aggrieved before. She glared at Feng Yuan. Why didn't you kill her? Why? Get out. Feng Yuan lost his temper at Feng Lu for the first time. Flying snow building. After Feng Yanfeng carried her back to her room, Lady Wang made up an excuse of not feeling well and went to lie down. Feng Yanfeng had business at court, so he left shortly afterward. Lady Wang bolted up as soon as Feng Yanfeng left. Her pale face turned livid as blue veins popped out on her forehead. Lady Wang felt like stabbing someone as soon as she remembered what she had seen on Feng Yuan's bed a moment ago. Granny Gui used to be Lady Wang's wet nurse and was the lady's most trusted servant. She was with Lady Wang all the time. Therefore, she had seen everything the lady saw. My lady, tears welled up in Granny Gui's eyes and she was full of remorse. She slapped herself repeatedly as she cried. My lady, it's all my fault. If it wasn't for me, Miss Lu and the young master wouldn't have. Lady Wang always sided with those she trusted. Even now, she wouldn't blame Granny Gui for anything. Glaring in the direction of Fallen Star Yard, she said, it's all Feng Wu's doing. She's pure evil. I'm going to kill her. But my lady, getting revenge requires patience. The most important thing now is to make sure that Feng Wu won't tell anyone. Fury had caused Lady Wang to lose her head, but not Granny Gui. She tried to talk sense into her lady. Let's bribe her first so that she won't talk. We can always deal with her later. Otherwise, if word gets out. Chapter 321, A Deal. Lady Wang still wouldn't accept the reality. Maybe nothing happened between them. Maybe Xiao Lu is fine, right? Granny Gui sighed. Rising to her feet in a hurry, Lady Wang almost knocked a chair over. I'm going to ask Xiao Lu now. Maybe she's all right. Flower Butterfly Yard, Perching Phoenix Pavilion. A tall Chinese parasol tree stood outside the building, its green leaves as clean as if they had just been washed. However, Feng Lu, who was lying in bed, didn't feel clean at all. Lady Wang rushed into the room while Granny Gui guarded the door. Grabbing Feng Lu's shoulders with both hands, she asked in a harsh tone and a twisted face, Xiao Lu, tell me the truth. Did it really happen? Did it? Feng Lu didn't answer the question directly. Instead, she grasped her mother's hands and asked eagerly, will Feng Wu tell the others? Am I going to be ruined? My reputation. Mother, help me. Help me. There was no need to ask any longer. The milk had been spilt. My poor Xiao Lu, Lady Wang wept in sorrow and rage. With everything that had happened that morning, Lady Wang was finally able to calm down by noon and proceeded to do damage control. One had to admit that Lady Wang was nothing if not a tough woman. A rainstorm hit town around noon, and a chilly wind blew as the rain poured down. The sky was dark and no one had any idea when it would stop. Granny Gui arrived, walking hastily and holding an oil paper umbrella. Because the gate of Fallen Star Yard, which had been broken a second time that morning, hadn't been replaced yet, Granny Gui walked straight in. Granny Gui held a sense of superiority toward Feng Wu's branch of the family, and she said to Granny Zhao in a haughty manner, "Where's Miss Wu? I'm taking her to see Lady Wang now." Granny Zhao frowned and said coldly, "Lady Wang doesn't necessarily have the final say. Wait here. I'll go inform Miss Wu." After that, Granny Zhao closed the door in Granny Gui's face, so abruptly that it almost hit Granny Gui's nose. Granny Gui was so frustrated. Granny Zhao came back before long, closing the door behind her, but Feng Wu was nowhere to be seen. "Where is Miss Wu?" Granny Zhao said in an indifferent tone. "Miss Wu says she can't be bothered to go out in such weather. If Lady Wang has something to say, she'll have to come here herself." That was word for word what Feng Wu said. Granny Gui almost had a stroke. How arrogant! Does Miss Wu have no respect for her superiors at all? Miss Wu says if Lady Wang doesn't feel like it, we can always meet another day. No matter now exasperated Granny Gui appeared, Granny Zhao kept her composure, her attitude neither haughty nor humble. It went without saying that Feng Wu had the upper hand. Granny Gui stormed off. Flying snow building. On hearing Granny Gui's report, Lady Wang was so furious that she smashed several vases. How dare she? Who on earth does she think she is? Asking me to go to her? However, Lady Wang had no choice but to do as told. For with each passing day, the risk of the secret being leaked increased. Fallen Star Yard. Feng Wu and Qingluan were the only ones here who knew exactly what had happened. Even Granny Zhao only had a general idea. Lady Wang is here, Granny Zhao told Feng Wu. Qingluan practically idolized Feng Wu and had stars in her eyes. "Miss, even Lady Wang has conceded, and you've just been back for a day." "I knew it. I knew that nothing in this world can beat my mistress." Qingluan's admiration for her mistress was genuine, for despite the quagmire they seemed to have been dragged into, Feng Wu had been able to find a way out almost right away. Chapter 322, Unhurried and Unperturbed. Feng Wu only smiled mildly. "We've startled the snake, and from now on, we'll have to be extra careful. We can't afford to lower our guard over such a petty achievement." "Yes." The last time Lady Wang was here, she had been surrounded by servants, which showed how eager she had been to demonstrate her power. But now, Granny Gui was the only servant she brought with her. Even with Granny Gui holding the umbrella for her, Lady Wang was drenched up to her knees after walking all the way to Fallen Star Yard. Her embroidered shoes left wet footprints on the dry floor. Lady Wang seethed with rage, but she forced herself to stay calm. "I need to talk to you in private." Lady Wang looked down at Feng Wu in a haughty manner. Feng Wu didn't even stand up. She only darted a look at Qingluan. Everyone left the room after that and Qingluan walked out last. She closed the door quietly behind her. Lady Wang glared at Feng Wu, her eyes spitting fire and blue veins popping in the corner of her forehead. There was a murderous look on her face and she looked as if she was ready to tear Feng Wu into pieces. Feng Wu sat on a mahogany chair decorated with carved patterns. A small red clay stove sat on the table in front of her and a clay teapot simmered on it. The tea was boiling. This girl looked so sure of herself. Lady Wang was furious. Feng Wu gestured at Lady Wang to sit down with a casual smile on her face. "We've only just moved in and there's nothing I can offer you to drink. We did find a bag of tea in the kitchen this morning, but it smelled moldy and I didn't think I should disgust you with that. Try some tea made from fire chrysanthemum, then. It's quite soothing." Lady Wang glowered at Feng Wu. "What on earth do you want?" Feng Wu played with a cup in her slender fingers. Her movements were so elegant and pleasing to the eye. Her calmness only enraged Lady Wang further. What do you want? Speak. Lady Wang was defeated before negotiations had even started. Feng Wu darted a casual look at Lady Wang. Aunt, I can detect a murderous intention in your eyes. Is that what you're going to do to me? Lady Wang finally managed to let out a snort. It'll be as easy as stepping on an ant. Have no doubt of that. Feng Wu chuckled. Even you are doubting it yourself, or you would never have come here in a rainstorm. That successfully silenced Lady Wang. You've got a sharp tongue. Only in comparison with you. Lady Wang was rendered speechless again. She had been right. Feng Wu was born to be her archenemy. That annoying woman had given birth to an even more annoying girl. Taking a deep breath, Lady Wang tried her best to cover up her anger. She decided to reason with Feng Wu. Xiao Wu, you should know better. If word gets out, your brother and sister will be ruined, but you won't be any better off either. People will say nasty things about the daughters of the Feng clan and you'll lose all prospects of marrying into a good family. And I can marry into a good family now. I'm the only girl in my extended family, but you have quite a few in yours, don't you? I don't have much to lose here and I'm happy with the outcome. Feng Wu smiled. Lady Wang. Feng Wu went on smiling. Lady Wang took a deep breath. You have no proof. Proof? Feng Wu asked. How about Feng Lu's undergarment stained with her virgin blood? Feng Wu was bluffing. That piece of clothing had long been torn to pieces by that fire wolf, but Lady Wang bought it right away. Rising to her feet, she pointed her finger at Feng Wu accusingly. You! Do you want me to show it to you? It'll remind you of your own son and daughter. Chapter 323, Do you like me that much? Shut your mouth. Lady Wang turned scarlet red and her face contorted with rage. What is it that you want? Very simple. Playing with the teacup, Feng Wu beamed at her. I want you to stop targeting me, but I know that's not going to happen, is it? Lady Wang wanted to lie and say that she could do that, but she wasn't able to make a sound when she looked into Feng Wu's bright knowing eyes. So, what I'm asking for is very straightforward. Feng Wu was still smiling, her eyes sparkling. However, there was something intimidating about her. You can keep doing whatever you want to do to me, but leave my family out of it. Try that and I'll talk. You know I'm capable of doing that. Lady Wang clenched her fists in her sleeves. Why should I believe you? Do you have any other choice? Feng Wu sounded totally unconcerned. Lady Wang stood up abruptly. You better keep your promise. She marched off after that. Qiuling, see my aunt out. Yes. Once Lady Wang left, Qiuling asked Feng Wu criously, Miss Wu, what did you say to Lady Wang? She was so angry she almost bumped into a tree. Feng Wu only smiled. It was a great opening. She didn't worry about her own safety all that much, but she was concerned about her family. Only after she made sure that they were left in peace could she go off to do what she needed to do without worry. It was just that with Lady Wang's temperament, that deal wouldn't last very long. So, Feng Wu had two priorities now. First of all, she needed to speed up her cultivation. Only when she was strong enough could she make others listen to her and protect her own family. Secondly, she needed to network and she had to meet more influential people. When she had enough powerful friends, Lady Wang would fear her, which would give Feng Wu temporary safety. Speaking of powerful people, no one in the imperial capital suited that expression more than the crown prince. Resting her chin on her hands, Feng Wu recalled what happened in that lake the other day. Feng Wu, do you really like me that much? Feng Wu, you're very attractive, but you're also way out of line. I won't stop you from falling in love with me, but please restrain yourself and don't interfere in my life. Feng Wu narrowed her pretty eyes. Those words still irritated her. Jun Linyuan, that self-centered bastard. I'm never going near him again. It'll only bring me more humiliation. The more Feng Wu thought about it, the angrier she became. Whoa, a cute cub stuck its head out of Feng Wu's sleeve and looked at her with glistening eyes. It looked worried. You know nothing, little thing. Feng Wu rubbed Feng Tutu's head. She then remembered that Feng Tutu was running out of food. Seeing that the rain had stopped, Feng Wu stuffed the cub into her chest pocket, left some instructions for Qingluan, then jumped over the wall. The good thing about Fallen Star Yard was that it was very remote, which meant that Feng Wu didn't have to use the manor's front gate. Plus, she found it very convenient. However, as soon as Feng Wu landed on the other side of the wall, 10 very capable-looking guards blocked her way. Every single one of them was more capable than Feng Wu. Miss Wu, my master sends you his invitation. Chapter 324, Who is it? Feng Wu narrowed her eyes in a threatening manner. Who's your master? Her eyes ran over the 10 guards as she spoke. They were almost identical in their height and build, and they stood there ramrod straight with emotionless faces. With one look, she could tell that these men were very well trained. They had the serious and conscientious attitude of soldiers. Miss Wu will know when you get there. The captain, who led the team, beamed at Feng Wu, looking very confident of himself. What if I say no? Feng Wu smirked. Well, this might be a remote corner, but the occasional person can still pass by. I presume that Miss Wu won't like to be spotted like this, the captain said with a smile. Are you threatening me? You're mistaken, Miss Wu. What if I refuse to be threatened? Well, I'm afraid that won't be an option. The captain was way more capable than Feng Wu. Picking her up swiftly, he said, Sorry about this. The world spun before Feng Wu's eyes, and when she realized what was going on, she had been tucked under the captain's arm and was up in the air. Feng Wu. Before Feng Wu could figure out what to do, they had landed outside a grand restaurant. World Tower. Standing outside the restaurant, Feng Wu looked up and saw the vigorous strokes on the shiny golden sign. So grandiloquent and so overweeningly arrogant, thought Feng Wu. It was a 10-story building with corniced brackets that reminded one of a great hawk spreading its wings. The exterior was richly decorated in jade and gold hues, reminding one of how magnificent and luxurious a place this was. This building was as tall as the gates of the Imperial Palace and second only to the watchtower of the Forbidden City. The owner of this place had to be very well connected to build something like this, or they would have been asking for trouble. What was more impressive was that Feng Wu sensed a high concentration of spiritual essence in the air once she stepped into the building. This place was equipped with an essence-gathering formation. The captain led the way and the rest of the guards walked behind Feng Wu in single file. They walked up the stairs as if they owned the place. Just then, a figure came down from upstairs and the person darted a look at the team in passing. He spotted Feng Wu right away. Xiao Wu. That person threw himself at Feng Wu like a big butterfly. It was none other than Feng Sun. Feng Wu rubbed her forehead. So far, nothing good had ever happened to her when Feng Sun was around. She hoped that today would be an exception. Geez. Feng Sun knew nothing of Feng Wu's silent prayer. He was thrilled to see Feng Wu. Hurtling down the stairs, he ran up to Feng Wu in a hurry. He patted Feng Wu on her slender shoulders in excitement. Hey, little Feng Wu, why are you here? Came to see me? Feng Wu forced a smile. Ha! You're here. So, you're not here for me? Are you looking for your uncle? Feng Sun looked enlightened. My uncle? Feng Wu frowned. With everything that had happened that morning, her uncle was still in the mood to go out and socialize? That's right. He's up there on 7th heaven. I saw him go there myself just then, Feng Sun said happily. His capability can only get him as far as 6th heaven, but for your sake, I let him squeeze into the 7th. You can thank me later. Feng Wu frowned. 6th heaven? 7th? I have no idea what you're talking about. World Tower consists of 9 heavens and a beyond world, don't you know that? Feng Sun stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. But he soon realized what was going on and he said to Feng Wu in a commiserative tone, "That's right. You were banished to northern border city before World Tower was built." Chapter 325, Where is my brother? Feng Wu rubbed her forehead. "Get to the point." Feng Sun explained in excitement as he followed Feng Wu up the stairs. The first 9 floors of this building are called 9 heavens, and the higher the floor one wants to visit, the more influential one has to be. The entry level for the bottom floor is a 7th-ranked official or the owner of a medium-scale business. Seeing how excited Feng Sun was, Feng Wu was starting to get a rough idea of who the owner of World Tower was. Take Feng Yanfeng, your uncle, as an example. Someone like him can only go up as high as the 6th floor. Feng Yanfeng could only go as far as the 6th floor. If Feng Wu remembered correctly, her uncle worked in the Ministry of Rites as a ceremonial master and was a 3rd-ranked official in the imperial capital. But he could go no higher than the 6th floor. Feng Wu shook her head. "You braggart." "I'm not." Feng Sun snapped. "Your uncle is entertaining his guest, the respectful Mr. Yen, up there. He wasn't sure he could get to the 7th floor, so he came to ask me for help. Since he's your uncle, I did him a favor and made an exception for him, and gave him access to 7th heaven. Come with me if you don't believe me. I'll take you to him." Feng Sun really showed Feng Wu the 7th floor after that. The corridor of the 7th floor was decorated with peculiar murals, and the first thing Feng Wu noticed was a painting depicting a sudden downpour. "Wait!" Feng Wu's eyes flickered. The painting didn't seem special at first glance, but she sensed something on the second. After observing it closely, Feng Wu saw that it wasn't any ordinary rainfall, but a shower of swords. Feng Sun explained to Feng Wu with a gloating smile, "Each floor has different menus and different murals. The density of the spiritual essence differs from one floor to the other as well. The customers are strictly stratified here and that's why everyone tries their best to move up the floors." They arrived outside a private room as they spoke. And they could faintly make out the conversation inside. "You flatter me, Sir Yen. Your daughter is smart and lovely and she's sure to have a bright future. Here's to your daughter. Sir Yen, of course you're not old. You're 3 years younger than me. Sir Yen." The person's tone was filled with fulsome flattery, but he wasn't doing a very good job at making his ingratiating words convincing enough. That voice belonged to none other than Feng Yanfeng, Feng Wu's uncle. "Sir Yen is my eldest aunt's husband," said Feng Sun. "Your uncle works in the Ministry of Rites, but that's not a very lucrative department and has little real power. So, he wants to get transferred to the Ministry of Official Personnel. It just so happens that the post of assistant minister there needs to be filled. Your uncle is the assistant minister of the Ministry of Rites, so giving him that same position in a different ministry is doable, but the Ministry of Official Personnel has always been a popular one and everyone beats down the door to get it. How about I talk to my uncle for you?" Feng Wu never liked her uncle that much, so she shook her head. "Don't bother." Feng Sun only thought that Feng Wu was being polite and he chuckled. "My uncle can make it happen, although it'll need some maneuvering. I can always go ask Boss Jun for help. It'll be a piece of cake for him." Jun Linyuan. Feng Wu felt her temper rise at the mention of that name. She declined the offer again with an emotionless tone. "No thanks." Feng Sun tried to be persuasive. "Little Feng Wu, don't be so stubborn. With your dad missing, your uncle is the only one who represents your clan. Your status will rise with him." Feng Sun had little idea of the complicated relationships in the Feng clan. Feng Wu stared at him. "Why is my dad missing?" "Well, how am I supposed to know that? And what about my brother?" Feng Wu kept her gaze on Feng Sun. Right, only then was Feng Sun reminded of Feng Xiaoqi and he slapped the back of his head. "You know what? I still have that thing I need to take care of and off I go." Chapter 326, So, do you want to sit on my lap? Feng Sun quickly slipped away after those words. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes. Feng Sun was so evasive. Had something happened to Xiaoqi? At that thought, she turned to the captain. Take me to Jun Linyuan now. She was sure by now that their master could be no one but Jun Linyuan himself. The captain showed Feng Wu all the way up the stairs. They walked past the 7th, 8th, and 9th floors, until they were on the 10th, which was known as Beyond World. The entire 10th floor was empty and spacious. A bullywood hollowed-out screen stood in the middle and smoke curled up in the air, giving the whole setting a charming atmosphere. Feng Wu saw a graceful, aloof teenager on the other side of the screen. He sat there casually at a tea table. He had finely chiseled features that reminded one of a sculpture. Sitting there with his eyes lowered, he looked fairer than the ice on the highest mountain peaks. There was something so elegant and unattainable about him. Even without his noble status and his good looks, one couldn't overlook that quality he possessed. He was silently refusing the approach of any strangers with that unsmiling face. Jun Linyuan. Even Feng Wu was dazed a little when she saw Jun Linyuan sitting there like a classic beauty. Inside the ring, little Phoenix began to jump around as the tiny abnormal flame in Feng Wu's mind began to stir. Ah, the abnormal flame. The abnormal flame. Feng Wu kept her face straight and acted as if she had heard nothing. Little Phoenix kept on pounding and scratching the wall and it screeched at the top of its lungs. Kiss him. Kiss him. Kiss him, Little Phoenix flapped its wings and urged Feng Wu. Feng Wu was speechless. Jun Linyuan raised his head and he looked as intimidating as ever. He frowned and didn't seem happy to see Feng Wu here. What are you doing here? Feng Wu snapped, didn't you force me to come here? Jun Linyuan darted a look at the captain of his guards and asked arrogantly, did you force her? Chang San said sincerely, we didn't. Miss Feng came of her own will. Feng Wu pointed at Jun Linyuan and Chang San, you people. Fine. I'll leave now. Feng Wu then turned to leave. However, Chang San and the others stopped her. The 10 guards stood in a line, blocking her way. Feng Wu was vexed. Turning around, she glared at Jun Linyuan. I thought I wasn't welcome here. Why are you stopping me from leaving? The Crown Prince replied with a casual smile on his face, you're here, aren't you? You have my permission to sit. I don't need your permission and I'm not sitting on a chair. Feng Wu thought she was going to explode. So, are you dreaming about sitting on my lap? Jun Linyuan turned his brooding gaze on her, making her stomach lurch. Feng Wu. For a split second, Feng Wu suspected that Jun Linyuan was flirting with her rather than ridiculing her. However, she rejected that possibility right away. Jun Linyuan abhorred her, so there was no way that he would flirt with her. He had to be mocking her. Feng Wu took a deep breath to calm down. She realized that Jun Linyuan was the only one that could set her off this easily. The most casual comment he made could make her go off like a dynamite. Feng Wu glowered at Jun Linyuan. Where's Xiaoqi? The Crown Prince gestured at her to come closer with his slender fingers. Feng Wu ignored him. Jun Linyuan kept his gaze on her, looking as if he had all the time in the world. Since she was in need of an answer, Feng Wu decided to compromise. She went up to Jun Linyuan, looking very grumpy.